There's a lot to be done, though, really between now and the game. At the end of the day, one thing we try to teach the players is you prepare through the event. It's an old Al Golden saying that, people say the hay's in the barn. We don't believe that. As you get in the game, you see how they're playing, you try to adjust. So, we have a lot of work to do. But so far, the guys have worked hard. Keep picking up steam heading into the game on Friday night.
Never gets old walking in that stadium when it's sold out. And I know we're going to need them extra this game, so I know they'll show out.
A crowd of 34,000 is on hand at Lincoln to see if the Huskers can dispose of versatile Dave Hoffman and his upset-minded Cyclone teammate.
Gives it back to Mike Stutz. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out there for 40. It is Eric Crouch. 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Yes!
Holy moly! Man, woman, and child did that. Put them in the aisles.
Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
I would guess, would you not, that Nebraska will sell out.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, kids. It is a game day, a Football Friday Fiesta. And it's a real game day. It's no pregame day. It's a real game day because tonight in Lincoln, Nebraska, Lincoln, America, as some like to call it, Nebraska and Illinois meet to kick off the Big Ten season in the 24 campaign. Both teams are ranked. And tonight is also the 400th sellout of Memorial Stadium. 31 million tickets have been sold. And tonight, the 400th sellout will be announced. And Nebraska and Illinois meet as Nebraska tries to go to 4-0. Welcome in, everybody. It is a Football Friday Fiesta. It's got a little different vibe to it. It's like the chill is in the air outside.
Yeah, you got the fall uniform on.
Yeah, man. It was
Love it.
It was chilly this morning. But it's going to be warmer. It'll be about 85 at kickoff as we come to you for the next 4 hours. You just heard from Jimmy. I'm Gary. Nick is off site today. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning?
Good. How are you doing? Well, everybody should be doing well. It's a game day. I'm not a huge fan of the Friday, but it's Friday. You can't fight it. You might as well embrace it. You're not going to school. You're not going to work. You're going to start tailgating at 11 a.m. this morning when the parking lots in Lincoln open up.
I say, why so late? But
and it's a Big Ten game.
Oh, I'm just asking what kind of strays you got when you were leaving the Omaha Press Club last night.
Oh.
Well done, my friend. Well done. Oh, my gosh.
I'm not surprised.
That open was, you warned us. That was pretty good. Tip of the cap to you, sir.
Thank you.
Did you get to take the bike home like Shohei got to take the base home last night?
No. So for people that don't know, last night, our good friend, Marty Cordero, the president of the Storm Chasers in Union, Omaha, was the 179th addition to the barroom floor of the Omaha Press Club. And he asked me to be the MC. He didn't want me to be a roaster because he had a couple of people in the organization from Alan Stein to Lee Polakov to Gary Green that were all going to roast him. But he said, would you be the MC? And I was like, oh, okay. And so I didn't really know what went into it. And then as we got closer, I was like, oh, I can roast the whole night. My initial takeaway is this. It is not easy to do because you have to roast while you move the program along. Mm-hmm. I think I accomplished that because when I got in the elevator at the press club last night to leave, this older lady said, ooh, only 4 minutes in and you were already talking about P. Diddy?
What took you so long? 4 minutes.
So our table, and it's probably appropriate that we were in the back corner there. Pretty much every other thing you said in the open, we all looked at each other with that look of, I can't believe you went there. I can't believe you went there. I mean, right out of the gate.
I'd have been grinning for
I can't say what I said to the guy that runs the press club that introduced me. I can't say on here what I said to him.
But I'll just say that set the tone. That's where we're like, all right, we got rare Gary tonight. This is going to be good. No, but it was very good. You did a great job because you did a good job of the emceeing part. But as far as roasting, because you said you wanted to do Tom Brady-esque, it was pretty good, man.
Yeah, I knew that my role was probably different from most of the MCs there because there was a guy from the press club that was sitting right in front of me, and some of the jokes that I was saying, like his face was like, "Oh boy." But the only one that the one that I really wanted to use that I couldn't because Marty Cordero's not fat.
Yeah.
He's just short, and there were a lot of short jokes, and he is really short. But I wanted to use a fat joke. Like, you were so fat in math class, you ate the pie chart.
I might have paid more attention.
I left a couple on the cutting room floor, but that was a lot of fun. It was great to see a lot of friends. We had quite a few listeners that were there last night, and it's a great honor for Marty, man. It was cool for him and Sarah and the kids. His parents were there last night. He had his brother was there as well. So he's a close personal friend who I'm very happy that he got that honor last night, and that people, if you want to go to the press club this morning, you walk all over Marty.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Look at that. What a week for him. He has that last night and then playoff baseball at Warner Park next week.
See, when you do one of those things, and I wouldn't say that I was raunchy, but I said some things.
Yeah, there was a reference to Tinder. You did mention the P. Diddy one. Then right out of the gate, you set the tone with thanks for that effing introduction. No, it was good. Yeah, it was on point. Even a little stray at the Sharp and Handley. You were the Sharp one of the equation. That was pretty good too.
Well, because the guy introduced me, and Nick was there sitting in the back with other fine folks from 1620. And I said, for people that are a little bit slower, because I said my name, and then I said, for people that are a little bit slower, I'm Sharp of Mornings with Sharp and Handley.
Yes, yeah. No, it was fantastic stuff. It was
the thing about the Tinder. So I got to set up the joke here real quick. I was kind of pointing out who was at Marty's table, and his family was there. And I said, and unfortunately, Marty's sister is not able to make it, but later we'll be able to go and find her on Tinder. So after I introduced Marty at the end, where he came up and he gave his very eloquent speech, he gave me a hug, and in my ear he goes, "My mom is asking what Tinder is."
That's good. It was good stuff.
So yes, I'm glad everybody had a good time last night. I'm sure it's one of those. I've never done stand-up comedy, but it's one of those you're trying to read the room.
Yeah.
There's one other thing I would have eliminated when people did not react so kindly to me saying that if you miss any of the ceremonies tonight, don't worry, P. Diddy is filming.
No, see, I feel like we had kind of a younger crowd over by us. So everybody, at least at our table and then the table next to us, they kind of got it.
Yeah, I think after watching the brief clip of Nikki Glazer, who showed up on the Prime desk on the postgame last night when the Jets demolished the Patriots, and people are saying she flopped, I might have been better than Nikki Glazer last night.
You were good.
Well, thank you.
I didn't expect it to be bad. I don't want you to make it sound like I had a low bar, but I mean, you came out guns blazing, and it was like you'd done this many, many times. So
you have to come out throwing.
Good. We'll see if Nebraska comes out throwing tonight. Well, there's Nick, Jimmy. I'm Gary. It is a Friday night, so it's a Friday game. We've discussed this for a while. It's here. You can no longer fight it. I think it'll be a great crowd in Lincoln. It is ranked on ranked. It is also one of those games that, if you look at tonight, Nebraska is a 9-point favorite. And I said early in the week, Nebraska will win the game and they will cover. I'm not sold on Illinois. Not that I'm saying I'm completely sold on Nebraska, but this is one of those games. Can Nebraska, for the fourth straight game, be cool? Like, can they be a cool program? It's like, isn't it, whether you are a fan or you follow the program or you just be around it in the state of Nebraska, there's a whole different vibe. And it's kind of fun. I mean, it's cool. Nebraska is winning. They're 3-0. People are positive. We don't talk about the empty seats in a stadium. People go because It's an experience, and it's rewarding, and they're 3-0. And you know what? They got a cool quarterback. They got an elite defense. They got good people in the program. I'm like, man, can they go 4 straight games where they make it cool? Because the rest of the country thinks that, Nick, this is a cool program. Did you see Joe Klatt?
Yeah.
Joe Klatt went on a rant, and he's done this. This is now like 2 weeks that he's done a rant against voters, but he again doubled down on Nebraska. He's like, people are underestimating Nebraska. And I'm like, what has happened? Has really Nebraska gotten the heads of Coloradoans? I mean, are we living rent-free in CU players?
I know, and Joe Klatt's kind of cool too. I mean, that's the thing, there's a little West Coast vibe with him. He's great in that commercial with him and Gus, which I can't believe they're running back for a second time with the hotels. But yeah, like his rampage or I should say his crusade of Nebraska should be at least in the top 20, if not maybe a top 15 team. I'm like, all right, let's hold off just a little bit here. But this is easily the Matt Rule effect, though, because I've thought about this a lot with the national attention that Nebraska gets, and it's amazing every time that Matt Rule sits down with a national analyst, whether it's Joel Klatt or Pat McAfee, which again has a cool factor with a younger generation. He sits down, he kills it with all of those guys, and then they come away absolutely 100% charmed by Matt Rule. But also, then there's a football team that has done what they're supposed to do at this point. They've gone to 3-0. So the little thing like that of, okay, there's this coach that all these national pundits just can't help falling in love with because of how he presents his program and himself. And then they're actually doing what Nebraska is supposed to do in the first 3 games, which when's the last time we could say that, when they actually are favored, they've covered, and they're setting themselves up for what could be a great season. It all starts with Matt Rule, though. The guy, he charms the pants off of everybody, and then he's got a pretty damn good football team to go with it when it comes to the things that they're known for, especially that defense.
Doesn't this game feel like, do you have faith? Like, I don't care to know what your religious beliefs are, or whatever you do, or whoever you pray to, or if you pray to the God of football. But it just seems like tonight is like a game of, on both fan bases, do you have faith? Like, does Illinois fan buy into, they're 3-0, they're ranked, and that's a real ranking? And this has the vibes of a couple of years ago when they had a really good football team, the best that Bielema has had. So do you have faith that they're going to go on the road for the first time this year, and what will be a hostile environment? Maybe not hostile, it'll be a juiced-up environment.
Yeah.
You have faith that Illinois is who they are, and then I think we're still trying to convert, and maybe we should be the pastor, and we'll have a congregation of, do people have faith and do they have belief that this is different, and just because it's a step up in competition, that Nebraska is not going to be the old Nebraska. They're going to be the new Nebraska, which games that they should win, they have started to win, and games that they should win that are played at home, they're winning those games as well.
The new Nebraska was the question that we asked before the Colorado game. And I think the new Nebraska doesn't have to be anything that's unrecognizable even from years past. The new Nebraska is just one that simply wins when expected to, because that's new. I mean, that's new. It's nothing like, you're gonna come out and run a West Coast offense, and all of a sudden you're gonna see this new version of how they get points on the board, or this exotic defense that all of a sudden they're revolutionizing all of the things that you see from defensive concepts. It's simply being able to do things that Nebraska hasn't done in a long time, and that's win football games when they're expected to win. And so tonight, I think, is one of those games, because you put a number next to Illinois, you put an expectation of, okay, big game, even going back to the Bo Pelini years. And I'm not trying to confuse this Illinois team to some of the Wisconsin teams that Bo had a tough time getting, but it is one of those games where it feels like a big stage. We talked about the significance of having the Friday night game, having all of the eyeballs, all the national audience on this team. So how does Nebraska perform in that type of environment now that you're going into conference play? New Nebraska, to me, is simply winning the games you're supposed to, regardless of Illinois being a ranked team. And we'll see how they are in 5 weeks from now too, if they're still hanging around the top 25 or still in the top 25, regardless of how their season goes. But having that number next to them, I think, does intrigue this matchup even more. But I do think, to your point, Gary, I think it does bring a little more hesitation into fully embracing the game tonight if you're a fan, because of years past, of those moments when you have an opportunity where you have a stage to yourself, you have a ranked opponent that you're playing, and you don't necessarily fulfill your obligation of showing up on the big stage. So if there is reluctance there, and I said this the other day before I could dive headfirst into saying they would cover, which I still am there, by the way, is
Look at that. We converted him.
you did.
Very,
Very
we very much have a religious theme going here.
Mhm.
Yes, it was.
Notre Dame was the opponent today.
It was a come to Jesus moment, if you will. But
Right on cue.
But if there is a hesitation for certain fans, it's the past. It's not this team. I don't think you're looking at this team right now and saying, yeah, I don't know. It's the man, I like what I'm seeing, but I've been hurt before. I've remembered these moments before. So
We got to get over. We
No,
got to
we
get
do.
over that.
And
We got to
tonight's
get
a
over
great night to do that.
Nebraska football PTSD.
we do. But tonight's a great night to do that too.
Is it?
I think so.
Now, I'm just creating this for conversation. If you look at Illinois and you go, they're ranked, but so the way I look at tonight's game for Nebraska, and I think it's 24-14 Nebraska. I think Nebraska covers and it goes under.
Tough ball game.
I don't know how Illinois scores 14 against Nebraska's defense unless Nebraska helps them. But you look at if Nebraska wakes up tomorrow morning and all the national shows are talking about Nebraska and they're talking about Dylan Riola and they're talking about the Matt Rule year number 2 and the rebuild is real and the future looks bright, and then you'll hear, well, they could be 7-0 going to Ohio State. They got to, just ease it back down while you're going, down 90th and Dodge. Is what would it mean for Nebraska? I think there's something, you use the word big stage, and it is a big stage because it's a standalone window on Fox, Friday night game. The place is going to look great. The weather's going to be fantastic. You don't have to worry about it being a rainstorm or anything like that and going, oh, man. It's going to look like it's a Saturday night in Lincoln. You're just playing a day earlier. But I think from the standpoint, if Nebraska wins the football game, you're like, okay, they won a game that they should have. Now where's the next step? I think if they cover, which is a little over a touchdown. Right now it's at 9, totals at about 43.5 when I checked about 30 minutes ago. You start to make the transition to where I think Nebraska is. They are a good football team. They are a good football team. What does that mean in the Big Ten? Still get you into the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
But a win like tonight, you start to move off the good scale and you start to inch closer to being a very good football team because Illinois will challenge you and do things to you that you haven't seen yet, and you'll have to adjust. And hell, Nebraska might trail tonight. The thing about the start of this season is Nebraska's trailed for, 11% of the season?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've led for 88% of the snaps this year. Nebraska might trail tonight. And it might be 3-0, might be 7-0, might be 10-0, who knows? Might be 10 during the course of a game. How do you respond? But I think what a win would mean is, and you cover, is you go from good and you start to inch closer to a very good football team.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think all of that is, first of all, is reasonable to expect. The schedule that we've talked about for months and what those first 7 games mean, it hasn't changed. Now, I think in a way it kind of helps Nebraska that, okay, Illinois gets a bump in the polls, so there's a number next to them. What Indiana is doing is impressive, and there could be some substance to that as well, but we're also looking at their schedule and who they've played, so we'll see what they are when Nebraska has to go out to Bloomington. So all of those things are part of this, of what Nebraska can accomplish. But, I mean, the bottom line is, for this program to feel like it's really turned that corner is when you are favored and you're handling business. When you're going on the road, like Purdue, for instance, they're going to be favored in that game. And how do you look when you go on the road in a Ross-Ade Stadium environment that, even though that it's sold out, it's still going to be an 11 a.m. game, and that's going to be your first road contest? Like, all those little things that are new to the season for this team in particular, when you change the variables of those games. If Nebraska all of a sudden is changing with them, and when I say change, not in a good way, but maybe you're playing down to the environment or to the opponent, and you're getting up for certain games, that inconsistency that we've seen hurt this program in the past. If you're showing up we can talk about covering or, however you look. I mean, there are moments that maybe they don't cover, but your eyes tell you, man, they were locked in, they were dialed in. They got a damn good effort from the other team that they were playing, but they always had the answer. Like all of those things, it's part of maybe how the score looks, but also what your eyes are telling you with this team. Because I think everybody, I think, can agree to this point that they go in tonight feeling as good as you have felt about this Nebraska football team in some time, as far as what they've shown, but maybe more importantly, what they can still achieve. Like the room that they have to grow, given this coaching staff's ability to identify that and get those guys fired up for that. Like that, to me, that's exciting. And I think fans should be excited about that too, because they're embracing the fact that they're 3-0, but they can be so much better than what they've shown to this point.
Let me clarify. When I say that Nebraska, there's 21 minutes of football that Nebraska has not led, the game was scoreless.
Yeah.
So
Like
Nebraska has never trailed.
Right.
And that's the, Nebraska really hasn't been punched in the mouth. Nebraska's done a great job of punching other teams in the mouth. There are stats along the way through the first 3 weeks, and the preseason is over. So what do you do with those stats? But I think there's one that you cannot avoid, and that is in the second quarter. So a lot of stuff is scripted right out of the gate on both sides of the ball, and you adjust or you get a rhythm going, and you figure out strengths and weaknesses after a first couple of series. They take the long TV timeout between the first and second quarter. You switch ends. Nebraska has outscored their opponents 51-love in the second quarter.
Yep.
Now, last year they got outscored 81-66.
Mm-hmm.
They're dominating the second quarter. So what happens when they get to the second half where the number one offense has only had one touchdown? Do they play into the fourth quarter tonight? I mean, is this victory formation Dylan Riola night? It's all of those things that you're going to start to figure out about your football team. But I think if you win a game and you cover, you've gotten off the good category and you're starting to climb the ladder where right in front of you on the climbing wall at Shields is the very good.
Yeah.
There.
Isn't it kind of interesting too? I think it was Brandon Vogel who brought this up on Wednesday of last year. There was a lot of, I don't want to say Matt Rule was dismissive about getting off to a good start, but he was more emphasizing the second half. He wasn't worried if they had a slow first quarter or if that opening drive didn't yield the points. Is more of just establishing themselves and being able to close strong. And I don't think that's changed. I think closing strong is exactly what he wants to have happen. But the fact that they're closing strong by just 2 out of 3 games now playing backups, actually all 3 games playing backups in the fourth quarter and getting off to a good start. You mentioned what they're doing in the second quarter, but also what they're doing on those first drives for the most part too, is they're coming out with a plan. They're getting execution offensively, but defensively, and you brought this up earlier in the week too, of what they're doing in the first series against the opposition, where they're turning teams away, with the exception of the 10-minute drive against Northern Iowa. But they're continuing to put themselves in that offensive position of, hey, we've got that ability to get out to a good start. We also have that ability to, whether it's a second quarter, or even early in the third quarter, to hammer down. So the fourth quarter, even though you want to close strong in the fourth quarter, isn't closing strong when you have the ability to put in your second and third teamers. And that's what they've done so far. So it is interesting how that wasn't talked about as much, of getting off to the good start, but closing strong. Yet now we're seeing them get off to a good start, and closing strong allows them to put in more guys, put in second and third stringers, and be able to create that depth that we hope serves this team well.
Yeah, I just Nebraska not giving Illinois advantages tonight by giving the football and turning it over. I don't know how Illinois gets to 14. I'm not enamored with the run game. Central Michigan had 3 sacks in the first half. The pass pro was not great. I look at KU, what KU could have done different. Just
same.
I feel good about 24-14 tonight. That's what I'm sticking with, and that would be a solid victory. You might go, they only scored 24. Well,
it's a tough victory. Got to win those too.
I mean, Illinois is going to do some things defensively, but I think Nebraska's defense, where this game will be won tonight, and they will be the stars of the game, is where Nebraska will make their hay in a place that juices them up, and they will be on defense.
Yeah, and the one part about Nebraska offensively that I think, again, gives people, I don't want to say gives people, but it's something to consider is, and we talked about a little bit more of the second half lull, and I think that this game, at least it's competitive enough, it's physical enough that I think it is going to force Nebraska, whether it's been a Marcus Satterfield and Matt Rule agreement to, all right, let's go about this as far as holding on to a lead or playing with the lead as opposed to let's make this bigger. I think this game has a chance in the third quarter to still allow them to be extremely the same as they were in the first quarter. So offensively, that's where I'm curious to see what that shows on the scoreboard. Like you said, 24. And if I mean they're holding Illinois to 2 scores and you put 24, you're happy with that too. If this thing has a chance to expand or this offense has a chance to ignite a little bit in the second half, I think that gives people even more excitement about not the fact that you're bucking the trend of maybe the first 3 weeks, but you're actually imposing yourself onto that defense. Like this offensive line is now, and go back to what Rule talks about, those 4-yard gains that maybe were in the first half are turning into 8 to 12-yard gains. So where you're starting to get big plays in the second half. Not saying all of a sudden they go completely air raid and get really creative offensively because they weren't in the first half of previous games, but their toll is now having its impact on Illinois' defense to where it creates a lot more offense. It creates a lot more opportunities for some big plays where you're seeing them do that. Because I don't think this game at halftime is going to be in doubt. I don't think this game in the third quarter, early in the third quarter, is going to be in doubt. No, I don't. I think that this is a game that.
You think this game is over from the start?
No. I think this game has a chance by mid-late third quarter to where Nebraska is still working itself to pull away. I don't think they've done that yet. And that's where I think that this game has a chance offensively to continue to see them running the same things, to do the same things that can create a little bit more offense, that maybe you see 17 points out of this offense in the first half, and maybe you see another 17 or 21 in the second half, which I think, again, would show balance. And people, I think, would be excited to see same amount of points, if not more, in the second half, as opposed to what they've seen in the 3 previous games.
Yeah, I think this game comes down to if Nebraska doesn't turn the ball over, name your score. With that defense against, I don't think Illinois can run the football against Nebraska. I would give you a nugget, and then we got to hit a break here. First 3 games from guard, center, guard on Nebraska or on Illinois' offensive line. When they run between guard, center, and guard, they've tried to run 33 times. Now, this is where Altmaier will step up in the pocket and try and run forward, but they also, with a 6'3", 250-pound running back, they try this as well. 33 carries, guard, center, guard. They've accumulated 31 yards.
I believe it.
Would I like to remind everybody who plays in the interior for Nebraska on defense?
They're good.
And what Nebraska has done against run games. Now, it got leaky against Northern Iowa, but you're going to have Bayor is back, Butler is back, Nash and Ty aren't going anywhere. Just remember that stat after the game, and we'll check that stat again. All right, let me give you the lineup for the Football Friday Fiesta on a game day, an actual game day. Brett Ciancia from Pick 6 Previews will join us coming up at 7:30. It's week number 4, intriguing weekend of the Big Ten at the Big House and also nighttime in Minneapolis. If you got stuff to do, I'm just going to give you a little PSA because I think a lot of people enjoy tomorrow, enjoy the weekend. You know, you play on Friday. That's one of the advantages. That noon game slate tomorrow, hello. You could sleep in tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Or go get yourself some apple cider donuts tomorrow.
There you go.
Go to Nebraska City or go out to Dittmer's or whatever. But that early 11 a.m. window in college football tomorrow,
it'll be a 1 TV deal.
But the 2:30, 6:30 is better. But the early games, I mean, come on. Am I going to watch Florida, Mississippi State to say goodbye to Billy Napier? Probably not.
Yeah. That's what we got Brian Edwards for. He can watch it.
Unless you're a glutton for punishment.
But Brett Ciancia will stop by coming up at 7:30. Lee Sterling is in at 7:50. I've not looked at his pick. Does he take a gander on Nebraska this week?
It's on the list.
Yeah.
All right.
I think he'll roll with the Huskers. I don't know anything. I'm just going off.
I'm just going to say that if Lee says Illinois will score 48, he's done. Our longtime relationship with Paramount Sports, he's gone. He's in at 7:50. Mike Schaefer at 9, and then Matt Verzal stops by at 9:20. That is the lineup brought to you by the Rooferys at John Higgins Weather Guard on Football Friday Fiesta. Feel good Football Friday Fiesta ahead of Nebraska and Illinois tonight. This is the start of your pregame. It is wall-to-wall discussion about Nebraska's Big Ten opener. And we will get into what also is special about tonight. For the 400th time, they will announce on the big board. They will change it from 399 on the facade to 400 as Nebraska celebrates their 400th sellout. 100, 200, 300, by the way. Nebraska won. Will they win 4? If you'd like to be involved in the conversation, you got thoughts on tonight's game, you're always welcome on the 42 Degree The Source hotline, 402-951-1620. You can always email us into the Equitable Bank inbox, where they take banking personally, professionally, and all the time. They're banking with you. Gary at 1620thezone.com.
Handley at 1620thezone.com.
Also on the JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed, at Gary Sharp 1620.
At Nick Handley, 1620.
Jimmy's here. I'll have an update coming up after 7. It was a busy night last night in high school football, as a lot of teams played last night to avoid going head-to-head with Nebraska tonight on Friday Night Lights on 1620 The Zone. All right, Football Friday Fiesta, Nebraska and Illinois tonight, 7 o'clock on Fox at Memorial Stadium. Weather's going to be great. Might be one of the last warm. Well, no, I'm not going to say that because we've had warm games in November, but it's going to be pleasant. I don't think it'll rain.
Lower humidity. Be very nice.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pleasant night. Students will be probably lubed up a little bit along with everybody else. I've heard a lot of people that...
Not in the P. Diddy way either.
No, well played. When the parking lot's open at 11 this morning, I expect a large throng of people that will begin their celebration of Friday Night Lights.
Mix in that Pedialyte. Go at it.
There's Jimmy. There's Nick. I'm Gary. Coming up a little bit later, Brett Ciancia will join us. Before we get to Andrew, Nick, we do want to... There is something that we'll be missing tonight at Memorial Stadium. It was announced last night. Greg Sharp will not be in the radio booth for the game tonight. Bill Dolman will be filling in for Greg, and we wish the best to Greg. Just a little minor setback, but will not be there tonight, and he will be greatly missed after seeing just the glow of him in the first 3 games when you see him in the hallway outside of the booth or listening to him, and especially some of the stuff that had been done like by the Big Ten Network on his journey to get into the booth for the first game. But he will not be on the mic tonight. It'll be Bill with Damon.
Don't know if he heard, but I'll add while Nick's getting back connected with us, we heard about that, but we'll be looking forward to his return to the booth hopefully soon. And best wishes to him. We're all with him, and we all fight with him. We all stand in the corner with him.
Here is Andrew. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning. Let's give some prayers for Mr. Sharp there. Hopefully everything goes well for him. Do you think Nebraska has showed everything?
No.
Offensively?
No.
So do you think it comes out this game, or?
Well, I think they are diverse enough offense that they haven't had to. They have taken what UTEP, Colorado, and UNI has given them, so they really haven't had to open up the commode, so to speak. And I think they have enough diversity in their offense that they will be able to change week from week. And if they don't have to use a lot of their offense and they keep it I'm going to use the word basic, but you kind of understand what I'm saying, then they will do that. I mean, there's no reason to put a ton of stuff on film, but I think subtly the Harburg stuff last week was intended to put stuff on film. So you make that defensive coordinator spend some extra time thinking, what if he comes into the game? If 10 comes off the bench, what are they going to do?
Yes. Do you think, I'm kind of interested in, do you think Riola will air it out a little bit more this game? I feel like he's going to have a huge passing game. I don't know if that's true, but what do you think on that?
Well, I think Nebraska can run the football. They'll establish the run. But again, they've done a really good job of not overthinking what is given them with the defense. Now, I think Illinois initially will try and make it difficult on him. They do a really good job of disguising their coverages. But I think Nebraska will also not let the kid be out on an island. I don't care how talented he is. They're going to give him weapons to figure out stuff right at the snap. I think tonight will be a big right at the snap recognition night for Riola. And I think you'll see Nebraska use some motion to try and get some tells from Illinois on what they're going to do. But if whatever Illinois gives them, I think this offense is built to take. You don't have to overthink it and try and put a peg into a square hole or whatever that phrase is.
That's a square into a round hole.
There you go. It's early.
I was at the Colorado game, and I think this crowd's going to be really lathered up and ready to be loud.
Put it on the board.
So let's hope it's as loud or louder than the Colorado game, because that did. I mean, I know Colorado said it didn't affect them, but it affected them.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. They got in the heads of the Colorado. Andrew, thanks for the phone call. I don't think it'll be as energized as the Colorado game because that was on a whole different level.
Mm-hmm.
But the place will be. I mean, it's a night game.
Yeah, pretty much no school today. I think it's what they say, online classes. Yeah, they're going to go.
Kids aren't going to school today.
Exactly.
Kids are going to they're going to wake up and they're going to start tailgating.
Yeah. Socializing
That
is
green
just as
space
important.
in front of the Union is going to be packed. We're the only place on campus you can drink.
Hell, there'll be professors on there.
What do you get tomorrow? You got
Yeah.
Saturday. No, it's a night game in a place that the vibe is completely different. You believe in the product that is on the field. People are showing up. There are no empty seats, and you got a good football team. Wow, that's a hell of a combination to
National
have
TV.
together. Yeah, national TV. See, this is it's a stage for Nebraska. Basically, have a 3-hour recruiting event.
Exactly. And that's basically, and Brando's going to wax poetic. I'm not making fun. He really loves coming to Lincoln and doing games there. So they will get the A+ treatment from the networks. And if they cooperate on the field and do what they should do and what people think they will do, it'll be a celebration. It'll be a great weekend.
All the national guys want Nebraska to be good, or at least Nebraska to be in a conversation. I keep going back to this. Nebraska looks good tonight.
Oh, we hear you. Hello. Nick is
Nick has to bait his Bill. If Nebraska looks good tonight and they win, they're a standalone game on Fox. I think it'll do over 3 million in terms of viewers. Last week, K-State, Arizona wasn't a super competitive game. Did over 2.5 million. Friday night games are here to stay. Nebraska's trying to play themselves out of playing home Friday night games, even though in the Big Ten office they'll look at the setting tonight and go, boy, whatever. Man, would Nebraskans show up on a Wednesday?
I mean,
before the NFL kicks in and we can just play all over the place? I kid. But what happens tomorrow morning? People talk about Nebraska. It's a 3-hour recruiting event for Nebraska. And to remind people that this is the new Nebraska.
And what you said yesterday, you do this, you play out of Friday at home, but that's also because the networks want you for their Saturday windows because got to have the Huskers on there.
Well, and you can also say, hey, Michigan says they're not playing at home. Ohio State's not going to ever play a Friday night home game. We should be playing on Saturday in primetime settings. This is the first weekday game for Nebraska at home since 2001. All right, Nick is back.
All right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Little man maybe stepped on the cord. Wait, is he awake yet?
Yeah, he was there for the first segment. He was just hanging out. He came walking in. I thought I heard a siren going off in the house, and I realized it was him. Not sure where he was and where I was, but he's good now.
Yeah. He scored a goal. Siren went off.
Yeah, we're good. Apologize about that. So what'd I miss?
We're talking about Aaron Rodgers last night and the awkward interaction with Robert Saleh.
Which one? Does anybody else? Okay. When you watch Robert Saleh, I think I've brought this up before. When you see him, even when they're winning and they're in control of a game, when he's on the sideline, he just looks. I don't know if I want to say it's not confused. It's usually just sort of deer in headlights, almost overwhelmed of God dang, this better work.
He strikes me as a guy that is just excited to be a head coach in the NFL, and he's got Aaron Rodgers. So it's like, Aaron, did you see what we just did? Did you see what we just did?
Well,
it was so cool that we just scored a touchdown.
And you did that for us. You used to play Packers.
It's kind of like when the old Chris Farley skit of when he would interview the celebrities and he would say like, remember when you did this? That was awesome. Do you think Aaron Rodgers is like, all right, Robert, it's or coach? Like there was always that Wade Phillips look.
When you won the Super Bowl, that was so cool. Do you know that I was watching that in my dorm room?
He's his biggest fan. There was this was something that I remember Shafe and I when we were watching old Cowboys games back in Columbus, and when Wade Phillips was
do that at home.
Cowboys,
like on YouTube.
On YouTube?
No, when Wade Phillips was
games to watch
for the Cowboys. This is a long time ago. Yeah, we don't just get together in Columbus and just watch old Cowboy games when Wade Phillips was
in 2009.
No, we all just got a kick out of it. Anytime they would show Wade Phillips on the sideline, it looked like a lot of things going on, but none of them seemed to be a positive thought. Where he just looked like, gosh,
he looked puzzled.
A puzzle. This looks a little too big for me. Even when it was 21-3 last night, like mid-third quarter, Wade Phillips, sorry, Robert Saleh, I just compared you to him. Robert Saleh talking to an official still looked very confused, almost scared, nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think it's the whole gravity of, okay, Aaron Rodgers is healthy. This better work. And hey, last night, Aaron Rodgers looked like old Aaron Rodgers. So good for him, at least for a week.
Helps when you're playing a bad team.
Yeah, their competition has gone down after the Niners.
Mhm.
Now, 250 and 2 scores is 250 and 2 scores in the NFL. That's a rough Patriot team that if they don't fix that offensive line, Drake May never take a snap for them because I would never put him behind them. But he did he had more mobility. So it was like one of those nights to show, hey, the Achilles, don't even worry about it. Don't think about it. Move around. His accuracy was better. I don't know if that was the vintage Rodgers, but it was the Aaron Rodgers that you kind of feel like you paid for. And they won the football game. And they dominated. That was a lopsided game, 24-3 last night. Jimmy's got an update coming up next. Brett Ciancia, Elise Sterling in the next hour. In the 8 o'clock hour, we will talk about Memorial Stadium. And the importance of what the 400th sellout is. But I think more so the importance of a facility that is over 100 years old, that sits in Lincoln, Nebraska, that has had upwards of 90,000 people inside of it, and the stories and the memories and what it means. Whether it's the 400th sellout or not, it's to be celebrated because it is a staple of Nebraska football. So we'll get into that coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. The streak started in 62. Nebraska, not bad. 324-75 during the streak. Will they make it 325? That's a round number.
It is.
I mean, that would be kind of unique, 325-75.
That would be kind of cool. Very easy.
Kickoff 7 o'clock tonight. Don't forget USC is in Lincoln. They'll have their pregame show at Blur Tailgate Parties under the viaduct.
But we're the first pregame show today.
Hey, we're ahead even the network.
Yeah.
Where's Coatney at? What's Coatney doing?
Sleeping.
He'll be back in the 8 o'clock hour with the Big Ten scoreboard update.
That's what, Nick, we'll expect that out of you in the 8 o'clock
okay.
hour.
I'll give you a scoreboard update.
And then the Big Red Overreaction with John and Josh is in Lincoln as well. Stop by. They're in an abandoned building on 14th in New Hampshire.
What could happen? What could go wrong?
Well, I mean, Crime Town. Yeah. if they win, you don't have to worry about anything.
It'd be like RoboCop OCP shows up.
They lose. People may be there to shoot silly string on them in their anger.
Is that what people resort to now? Is silly string still a thing right now?
It's peaceful.
It used to be at Lincoln Stars games.
Oh, look who's there.
Yeah, really? and then someone stepped up and said, no, you know, it's getting on the ice, it's getting on the glass.
Yeah.
I don't know, an adult came in and ruined all the fun.
If it's on the glass, that stuff, it'd smear in there. That's going to be tough to get off. So I get it. There's like a sticky film. It's already hard to see through those things as it is. So you start putting an extra residue on it, that can be problematic.
All right, there's Nick, there's Jimmy, I'm Gary. Jim's got an update coming up next on 1620 The Zone.
Yeah, buddy. You want to take a bath? Why is that? Can we wait and take a bath after I'm done? Because I only have like a few minutes in between. Bud, we can do a bath when I'm done, okay? Okay, I just don't have enough time to monitor you because I only get like a couple minute breaks in between. Yeah, but buddy, I don't want you. What if you slip or something? Okay, can you just wait and then just watch your iPad? Okay, and then I'll come in here in a little bit and don't worry, buddy. If you want to take a bath, we can take a bath when you're done.
Okay, no music today because we want Nick to be part of it, so you don't need the music. You can't have both with the way it's set up, so we'll just do this sans. You can hum any theme you want. Hey, the West Side Machine rolls through Bellevue West last night, 52-21 last night at Phelps Field. It was the Warriors' school record tying 24th in a row, matching the 81-82 undefeated state championship team. Sophomore Braylon Warren goes 13 of 16 for 244 yards. Elkhorn North beats Gretna 42-7. Wolves running back Jet Tinglehoff scores a trio of touchdowns in the first half. Tonight, Millard South and Millard North at Buell. There was a lot of games yesterday. Here's one we've talked about a few weeks ago with no Husker game tomorrow at Memorial Stadium. Remember, they're playing tonight. Yeah, everyone forgot. Memorial Stadium will host the 105th playing of the F&C Cup Trophy between Columbus and Fremont. This is why we couldn't have Nick not be in on this, because you know this matchup well. Game time is high noon. You might as well just stay there if you're going tonight and continue tailgating on into tomorrow morning. Fremont spectators will enter Gate 10, sit in the West Stadium as the home team, with Columbus cheering sections entering through Gate 22 and sitting in the East Stadium. Ticket prices same as for Fremont home games, $7 for adults, $5 for students, $3.50 for senior citizens. UNL concession transactions are cashless. If you remember, if you haven't been there yet, each school will hold a tailgate party prior to the game, doing it up right. Fremont will be in Lot 8 off Salt Creek Roadway, Columbus Lot 12 west of 14th and Vine Street. Have a day. Should be a lot of fun.
Is the Blur Tailgates doing anything with Fremont and Columbus tomorrow?
I mean, they could get in touch with Fred, see if they can put something together.
They need to, everybody, if you haven't seen the FNC Cup Trophy, I explained this to you guys when we first knew that this game was going to be played on a Saturday. It's the deflated bronzed football. It's a very hideous looking trophy, but it means a lot to both communities too. And as I think Gary mentioned the first time, they couldn't come up with a better name than the FNC, as in Fremont and Columbus Trophy. I thought the same thing, but again, it's tradition. So it means a lot. But
I love this. It's going to be a fun day.
I always thought it was going to be Columbus Norfolk when I moved to Columbus, not Columbus Fremont. But there's a rich history between those two schools when they get on the football field and on the basketball court too. So kind of cool though that will be played at Memorial Stadium. That is kind of neat.
Noon tomorrow. Both sides have lots of fun. It'll be a great time. The American Volleyball Coaches Association announces its watch list for this year's Division I Player of the Year award. The Huskers garner 4 on the list: Merrick Beeson, Harper Murray, Bergen Riley, and Lexi Rodriguez. They were named to the inaugural list of 36 players. A total of 36 players from 21 schools named the list. Nebraska leading the way with 4 athletes. Wisconsin and Pittsburgh, the only other schools with 3. But hey, that's not all. The watch list will be narrowed down in November. And Husker Volleyball is at Louisville Sunday at 11:30. The match will be televised on ABC. Shout out Andy Kendi and KETV. And we say that's not all because Creighton's Ava Martin and Kendra Waite, they're pretty good too, just as the team is. They're also named to the same list, and deservedly so. Martin and Waite are the only 2 Big East players in the entire league to make the cut so far. The Jays are in the Holy Land of Lawrence to take part in the Jayhawk Classic. They'll face number 6 Purdue today at 4 before facing the 10th-ranked Jayhawks tomorrow at 3. Shohei Otani becomes the first player with 50 home runs and 50 steals in a season in baseball history, while clinching his first trip to Major League Baseball's postseason. Yes, you can hear Rob Manfred and his people breathing a sigh of relief and praying that they don't blow it again in the opening round. Dude pretty much seals becoming the first full-time designated hitter to win an MVP award with a 6-hit, 3-homer, 10 RBI, and 2-steal performance in the Dodgers' 20-4 rout of the Miami Marlins. A crowd of 15,548, that's a lot in Miami, was on hand to witness Otani's historic feat and serenaded him with a standing ovation, prompting him to spill out of the dugout for a curtain call. Shout out to Skip Schumacher, the Marlins manager, who refused to intentionally walk him, saying that no, you don't need karma for that. Baseball man through and through wanted to pitch to him. They did. That's what happened. Football last night, Jets beat the Patriots in the honor, 24-3. The college game, by the way, South Alabama rolls App State 48-14 in Boone. Someone on the stream yesterday said that South Alabama was going to do so. So they knew something.
That was bad in the mountains of Boone, North Carolina. Otani, what he did last night, and by the way, the fan walked away with the ball.
Yeah.
Didn't want anything from the Dodgers. It could be upwards of $500K. Not only the incredible accomplishment, and the thing, I've now waxed poetic about Otani more than probably any other Omaha radio show, is he is doing this where it's universally praised. Like, I don't think Otani's on steroids.
No.
I'm just going to guess. So back when these kind of feats were being accomplished, you're like, well, you don't have that. So I think he's universally praised, and he's headed towards GOAT status. but he also may have done something yesterday in that win. Is that the greatest individual performance in a game ever?
6 for 6.
10 RBIs, 3 home runs, and he stole 2 bases.
Find me a better one.
Like Mark Whitten, there's a game in Cincinnati when Whitten.
Hard hitting.
So he had 12 RBIs in that game, but he never stole a base. Otani, at 6'4", 200 and about 20 pounds, stole 2 bases last night. And he's turned, you know what? And the thing, I mean, of all the accomplishments that he's had, Nick, the fact that he has become an elite base stealer.
Yeah.
He has 50 plus stolen bases. 50 plus stolen bases for a guy that doesn't lead off.
Right.
It's not like a guy you'd go, oh, man, Ricky Henderson 2.0. He's a large man. He has stolen 50 plus bases.
Well, yeah, and think about what the most stolen bases that Barry Bonds had was 52 in 1990 when he had, I think it was 32 home runs, right around there. When you think of the power speed combos to that feat, usually the guy is going to somewhat look the part. And when I say that, is not going to be at the 6'4" stature, is going to be like Aaron Judge, for instance. He has no problem hitting more than 50 home runs, but he's 16. I think most stolen bases that he's had is 16. So his size, the fact that he can do that, it defies logic as far as his overall athleticism. And this is kind of the cool thing about this whole milestone that he accomplished. And for someone who advocates for the sport of baseball, especially when I was a pitcher back in the day, and they said pitchers were not athletes and baseball players were not athletes as much as the basketball and football players, this is the true definition of the almost perfect specimen athletically when it comes to playing baseball. When you are built that way, you've got the power that he has. You can throw the ball at an outrageous clip, both as a position player and as a pitcher. And then, you have speed to go along with it as well. Like it defies anything that we've ever known. I mean,
like
there was the Ronald Acuna
Mhm.
season, which was very, very good a year ago when he goes over 70 stolen bases. But again, you think about the type of mass that Shohei Otani has compared to guys like Barry Bonds, compared to guys like Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Aaron Judge, some of the guys that whether you officially recognize them as the best home run hitters in their time because they were either on substance or not. What was Mark McGwire's? Did he ever steal more than maybe 3 bases in a season? Sammy Sosa had a little bit more athleticism.
25, 30, 35.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that is true. I guess he did have, as he was getting bigger, I should say. When he was in St. Louis, yes, not in Oakland.
No, I don't think he ever did.
No,
Yeah.
but that's the interesting part about the whole thing is when you're that big, yet you can move like that. I mean, the home runs are one thing. We see that a lot in this sport, but to be able to, again, be the well-rounded athlete, it's just, honestly, it's something that I'm pretty convinced we'll never see again, at least in my lifetime.
Does it next year.
Battle of Millard tonight, Millard South and Millard North. Be an intriguing game. So people will be on their phones watching the Nebraska game while they have the game in front of them at Buell. West Side beat Bellevue West again last night, rather handily. West Side is what Bellevue West was about 5 years ago. Dynamic, great in the line of scrimmage, dudes all over the place. It's been a handoff. It's like running a relay race where they take the baton, and North gave it off to Bell West. Bell West gave it off to West Side. West Side currently has it. They've won 24 in a row. Millard South is trying to race them down and take the baton away. And then, oh, by the way, Elkhorn South has kind of like just has been running with everybody. They just haven't had the baton in their hand. But I think West Side is what Bell West was 5 years ago. And then last night, they scored a couple of touchdowns on kickoff returns. Steve Warren's son, who's a sophomore, Braylon Warren, looked really, really good, which is scary for West Side.
Wow.
If they have a guy. Well, the one thing about West Side is they've done a good job of handing off the quarterback position from Cole Payton to Anthony Rizak to now to Braylon Warren. But the other thing I saw last night, just texting with someone that was at the game, Christian Jones showed up. Just reminded everybody that on my big board, he's the number one player in the state. But there are national recruiting guys. Maybe we'll get into this with Shafe when he joins us at 9. The local recruiting guys but national recruiting guys that have wondered, is Christian Jones really worth the ranking? Because they look at his stats and they're like, does he ever make an impact in a game? And I'm like, you know what? Go watch a game in person. But last night, he was big in their big win over Bellevue West.
Hey, finally, if those people on the stream heard it was bath time in the Handley household, there's a reason. There's a reason. I cannot forget this. Their Cleveland Guardians clinched a playoff spot last night with a comeback win, 3-2 over the Minnesota Twins. There was champagne in the Handley basement and in the locker room in Cleveland as your Guardians did it, somehow making it to the playoffs. You tried very much to, they were going to blow it. They're going to do this. But they got in.
In true Cleveland, well, actually in true Cleveland, Minnesota fashion too, in extra innings, but also in true Cleveland fashion too, where offense is a bit scarce, but they were able to do just enough to get it done. Yeah, I was talking to somebody about this last night too, just talking more about the Central Division. I think I already went on record saying I thought Cleveland would finish third in the division. Then they lose Bieber. And I thought there's no chance. And then even as they were staying afloat, Tristan McKenzie, who you're going to rely on a lot, especially with the no Shane Bieber, can't get out of the third inning. So all of a sudden they have to send him down. And this just goes to the true fabric of that organization. As much as I wish they would spend more money, I don't think there is an organization that develops pitchers, whether we're talking about starters, front end guys, or bullpen arms, better than what Cleveland does. And I'm not going to make any. I have no grand illusions that that's going to take them to their first World Series since 1948 because they lack some significant offense and they're going to need that at some point. But it is a reminder of how truly remarkable that part of the organization is, the ability to identify young prospects and develop them on the mound. Because without that bullpen, hell, they're probably sitting just above the White Sox in that division.
42nd comeback of the season. You have two other college football games tonight. Longtime hated ACC rival Stanford travels to Syracuse. You can hear the sports journalist just foaming at the mouth this morning. And in the nightcap, after you celebrate a Nebraska victory, you have the San Jose State University at the Washington State University on your local CW affiliate.
It's a good sicko game.
I'm not going to lie. I'll probably watch some of it.
Oh, it'll be
actually not some. I'm going to watch a good deal of it.
I mean, when you're at the bar in Lincoln and you're trying to fight off other student athletes who are trying to get in there and try and get priority. Not that I would know that or anything. That game will probably be on.
Yeah.
Anybody want to take some juice here on will tonight be the first time since November 5th, 2022 that Nebraska has accomplished something in a football game. And that is having a running back or a quarterback go over 100 yards rushing.
Wow. November 5th, 2000.
Illinois' rush defense is 59th in the country. They give up 123 a game. Nebraska can be a little running back centric. I think they will establish the run tonight. I think that they will be able to run the football. If I look at KU, if I look at even Central Michigan, they all had moments where they were able to run the football on this Illinois defense.
Some teams should
which is
stop.
missing a first-round pick from last year. Will tonight, under Matt Rule for the first time, be a 100-yard rusher.
Give me some Dowdell.
The closest was Emmett Johnson last year against Maryland. Mm-hmm. But Anthony Grant is the last player at the University of Nebraska to run for over 100 yards, and he did that in the touchdown loss to Minnesota back in 22. You guys want any juice on that?
Nope.
Well, I'm in.
I thought it might happen last week.
What skin do you have in the game, Jimmy, if you go, yeah, I'm all in?
I'm
what
all
do you
in.
want to put on the line here?
We're going to make a bet that they're going to get a 100-yard rusher tonight.
100-yard rusher.
On the show? Let's see. I'll bring breakfast for you guys.
Boom. There we go.
Okay.
Now what happens if they do? We bring breakfast for you?
I mean, I guess. Everybody wins because everybody gets breakfast. That's the point.
So wait, Jimmy,
I'll buy you a beer. If not, you buy me a beer.
Jimmy, you're saying that they will. Nebraska
will.
Okay.
They're gonna get 100
so if they don't, then you will. If they do, then we owe you. Okay. That's fair.
Sure.
All right.
I'm simple. We know you won't be getting a chicken and a biscuit for us, but that's.
Well, I mean, if that's what you guys want.
Oh, okay.
I just
take one
won't
for
have
the team.
I just want to have it.
I think Nebraska will run the football tonight in some non-traditional ways.
Okay.
My guy tonight is Ja'Cory Barney. I think they will use Ja'Cory Barney in a bunch of different spots tonight. I think you will see him run the football. They may mix it up. Could you see him on an end around, something like that? Barney is my guy that will get the most attention when he has the ball in his hands that is wearing red tonight. I guess
Yeah, I
that'd be
like
my
that one.
bold prediction.
Yep.
But I think Nebraska will not be strictly quarterback handoff game out of the run game.
Yeah, fly sweep stuff too. I mean, you've seen a little bit of that now here the last couple of weeks with Ja'Cory Barney. For as tiny as he is too, dude can take a hit. He's like the rubber man, just bounces right off too. I like that. The running back, if we're looking at a guy that is most likely, if you are to see 100-yard running back, and I just saw Kobe say Dowdell, just saying Dowdell is special, that is. I'm gonna be very interested to see what Emmett Johnson does tonight. I think Emmett Johnson's gonna have a role, and I think just when you kind of forget about him a little bit, and we saw some success that Dante Dowdell was having, that Emmett Johnson, I get it, against an FCS opponent last week, but was getting some traction, even had a little bit there towards the end of the Colorado game too. I got my eyes on Emmett Johnson. If it is to happen, I'll say if they get a 100-yard rusher, it won't be Dante Dowdell. It'll be Emmett Johnson. But I think he, in this game, is the guy that I think has the most success running the football. I like your Ja'Cory Barney pick because I just think he's a guy that I think they absolutely love. I think he makes Marcus Satterfield giddy every morning because they can scheme for him. They can design things for him because he's that type of player, and he's only gaining more confidence too, which is just so much fun to see.
He's a chess piece because I think Nebraska will use a lot of window dressing tonight to help out Dillon. I brought this up to SIP yesterday, and you cannot overlook this. They have a good understanding of the offense between Satterfield and Riola that Nebraska goes tempo and they get the play in early. So it gives a freshman quarterback enough time to diagnose some pre-snap stuff. But the thing that Illinois does well in the back end, not only are they going to take the football away, is they disguise stuff. They did this last year, but they were not as talented. But they do a good job of disguising man, zone, what they're going to do, and they'll try and do that. I mean, they'll try and throw Riola off his game with pre-snap stuff. I think Nebraska will use a lot of window dressing tonight to get a tell, to see if Illinois will give up what they're doing at snap, because they have a smart enough quarterback that he could diagnose that in real time. And then if he needs to change the play or stick with the play they have it set up right, and they're going to catch Illinois off. And that's where I think you'll see Dillon cook tonight more than just straight drop back and chucking it down the field.
This is what Kotelnicki did to him last year, would expose them and get them out of position and then just attack them by making the linemen especially move laterally. And once that happens, you got him.
Yeah, the other part about the discovery of Dylan Riola as a true freshman, I think tonight it provides that kind of test too, because of a lot of what you lay out there, but also if there is that moment of confusion, he thinks he's got a certain look, and then all of a sudden as things develop, he doesn't have that look. What is his decision-making in that moment too? Because this is where I think we've all been very impressed with his calmness in those moments. Is he still able to understand to live for another down, or is there confusion to where it's leading to some either errant throws or just bad decisions that he's throwing into coverage? And then you've got, again, if you want to talk about the path to victory for Illinois, it would be that where they're able to get the ball back. That to me, I think I feel good about Dillon being able to do that so far, what he's shown. But I think tonight is going to be a great test, given what they're going to try to do defensively to confuse him.
Well, I think Nebraska's taken plenty of time looking at what Daniel's problems were against that Illinois defense, what mistakes he made, and why he made them, and what Illinois was showing when Daniels threw the ball into the arms of the defensive backs, throwing the 4 picks in that game. All right, Nick is in his home studio with the kid.
Soaked in champagne.
There's Jimmy. I'm Gary. Brett Ciancia, Big Six Previews, will join us next. It is an intriguing week number 4 with some conference games. We have a mini Rose Bowl that's being played away from Pasadena in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and a couple other things. Rutgers trying to go to 3-0 for the 4th straight year. And will UCLA double their touchdown passes at LSU? Colorado hasn't scored a rushing touchdown. UCLA's only thrown 1 touchdown pass. UCLA's in trouble.
They're not good.
Yeah.
I don't think it's 2024, boys.
No.
UCLA's setup in the Big Ten, that's going to be rough climbing up. And all of a sudden, USC is like, oh, wow, is USC back? And UCLA seems to get further and further away. If there's one team that should have said no to the Big Ten, but they couldn't because of the ching, it's UCLA. They played LSU. They might be in a lot. They might only win 2 games this year.
I was just going to say 2-10.
Yep.
Smart man, Tony White. All right, Brett Ciancia from Pick Six Previews coming next. All right, on Football Friday Fiesta, and it's actual game day here with Nebraska and Illinois later tonight at 7 o'clock in this gentleman's viewing area. It'll be 8 o'clock Eastern. This is our good
Okay, I'll get him back.
friend from Pick Six Previews.
He
was like, screw that. Hung up the phone. Like, I'm not having any of that kind of business. As we welcome back into Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Oh, Nick, if you could see behind the scenes of getting Brett hooked up this morning.
Oh? Why? What's going on? It's just not a simple phone call?
Yeah. We have when we get guests on before 8, here's a little inside baseball. We try and figure out how awake they are. On a scale of about a 6. All right, I think we got hooked up here. Good morning, Mr. Ciancia.
Hey, good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Were you upset about what? You hung up the phone because you thought that the Sixers were paying too much for Embiid with his new contract announced?
Well, man. Well, that too. And then they're moving the stadium out of the stadium complex. It's a mess over here. So, yeah. And then the Eagles are losing. It's a bad time for Philly sports. Need the Phillies to bail us out.
Well, you should come back to Nebraska. People love you here. It's all happiness. Nebraska's 3-0 playing a ranked game. 400th sellout tonight.
Yeah, how about that? It's game day in Nebraska. National TV spot here. Ranked versus ranked. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to be excited about. So it's good to have Nebraska back in the national spotlight.
So let's start there because I think there's a theme this weekend. There are some nice, juicy matchups of ranked on ranked, and one of them is in Lincoln. Who would have thunk it before the year began that Nebraska and Illinois would both be ranked playing this game? If I give you these two teams and I say, which team is the gotta have it in terms of winning, which school would you pick, Nebraska or Illinois tonight in the gotta have it game?
Oh, it's got to be Nebraska. And I respect Illinois' program, and I think that Brett Bielema's got them performing above standard for them. But with Nebraska, this is a national powerhouse team. This is a blue blood program, as they're called, and they've been out for a while. The longest bowl drought, and I don't have to rattle off the stats. You guys know the negative stats. So this is a chance on the national stage to bounce back and keep punching back towards national prominence. And they already had that first spot against Colorado, and they thrived. I mean, that was a huge game. A lot of eyeballs on that, and Nebraska looked incredible. So you want to do that again. You want to start stacking wins, and you want to build up to that potential 7-0 start heading to Ohio State for another game of the week matchup. So these are important building blocks to getting back to national prominence and another shot tonight on national TV. So it's definitely more important to Nebraska. That's just because I had different views of the two programs. I think that Nebraska is a true national program. I think Illinois has a lower ceiling as a program.
And Brett, I think most of us would agree with that as well. I'm curious, when Illinois comes in with a ranking, does that change anything for you as far as the significance of tonight's game, or the fact that you just have the national audience and that was always going to be a game that was going to be extremely significant? Does the ranking that Illinois has change anything?
Well, I think it adds a little juice to it. I think that the average college football viewer, now they're a little bit more excited to watch it. They might tune in a little bit more now when they see those two little numbers next to the names. I think that it was always going to get a lot of eyeballs being one of the only two games on. I think it's Stanford and Syracuse are on the other channel, and then you got Nebraska, Illinois. So they were going to get a big following regardless, but now it's got a little extra juice. It's got the two ranking numbers. I think it's so early in the season that, the top 25, it's cycling out every week. And, that's based off of Illinois jumping out to 3-0, and they did stack a nice win against Kansas. But I don't think that at the end of the year, Illinois will be ranked in the top 25. So, but I think it does add some juice to it for sure. And it's a little thing, but people notice that and they'll be tuning in.
Hey, so let's stay in the Big Ten. And I want to go north of here because the Floyd of Rosedale Trophy is on the line in what is just a tip of the cap to Big Ten West football. But the Pig resides in Minneapolis after the controversy at the end of the game last year. Tight spread in the Iowa-Minnesota game. I wonder, Brett, will Minnesota make Cade McNamara throw the ball? And if they do, how does this game unfold? How do you see Iowa-Minnesota on the 21st of September?
Yeah, well, it's classic Big Ten West with the over-run there at 35 points. It's back to the old days. Love that. And you got a trophy on the line. So I like Iowa here. I don't want to sell them too much after just one loss to Iowa State and really what was a coin flip game against Iowa State. And I think Iowa will find themselves in a lot of coin flip games, just given their style of play and how strong their defense is. So I think that they get it done here. Cade McNamara, I think will have some success. We haven't seen too much of Minnesota. I remember they were on that opening Thursday night against UNC, and UNC starting quarterback was knocked out. So they played the backup and still lost. So I still like Iowa. They do feature the nation's rushing leader at Iowa. So they're getting some production out of that run game with Caleb Johnson. And I think they're the more complete team, as crazy as that sounds. But I love their defense. I think they're going to get enough on the run game. I'll go Iowa.
Exciting game in Ann Arbor. We know this isn't the same Michigan team it was a year ago. Alex Orji's getting the start. Offensively is not what I'm interested in as far as what Michigan's bringing in. Their defense versus this USC offense is what I'm curious on your thoughts as far as what we know USC with playmakers, but also if there's a strength of this Michigan team, it is going to be their defense. Is this that welcome to the Big Ten moment for USC, and how much are you impressed with USC start to this point?
Yeah, well, USC start, I am impressed. They go and they beat LSU in the national opener, and then they go shut out Utah State 48-0, and that's a Utah State team that the Utes just struggled with a little bit on Saturday. So I think 2 quality wins. Now you start to wonder, because there's only so few of games so far, that can you compare these opponents? Like, is LSU really a top 15 team? They went and struggled against South Carolina, and the prior week against McNeese, I think it was. So it's so hard this early on to evaluate wins and losses. But I do like what they've showed so far. I think they've got an improved defense. But I think Michigan's being a little bit disrespected here, being a touchdown underdog at home as the defending national champs. I know that Texas beat them up pretty good, but that's Texas, who's number 1 in the country, a proven playoff team. I don't think USC has that kind of proven nature right now. So I like Michigan's defense. I think it's one of the best in the country. Their defensive line is elite. They have All-Americans all over the place. And I think this quarterback change will play in their favor just as a wild card. You know, we've seen what they have behind door number 1, and that was throwing a lot of picks, 6 interceptions in 3 games. So let's see what they have with number 2 here, a dual threat guy with not much tape, and USC doesn't know how to prepare for this. So I think it's going to shift things up, and I think Michigan will win it.
Hey, around here, as you know, Brett, you look ahead, and you mentioned 7-0, and that's a possibility for Nebraska. But after they take care of business tonight, they go on the road next week at West Lafayette, take business. It could be another ranked matchup against Rutgers, who has to me, an intriguing matchup this weekend, where they go to Virginia Tech, who's trying to erase that Vanderbilt loss. But Rutgers has one of the best running backs in the Big Ten, and then maybe because he had a change of scenery, do they have a quarterback? Because he's the first Rutgers quarterback in 9 years to throw 3 touchdowns in consecutive games. The Greek Missile, who transferred from Minnesota. Is Rutgers for real in your eyes?
Yeah, I think they're a strong team. I mean, they're a bowl team. They're one of those that could go 6-6, 7-5. You know, they're not the Rutgers of old that was 2-10 and you'd pencil in as a W. I think it will still be a battle. Thing I like about Rutgers so far, it's a strong identity having running the ball, pounding the rock with Kyle Monangai, one of the best running backs in the Big Ten. Offensive line is one of only 3 in the country to not allow a sack so far. In Power 5, only 3 teams haven't allowed a sack. It's one of them is Rutgers. And that's a mismatch going up against Virginia Tech, who has allowed some of the most sacks in the country. That was supposed to be the big offensive line, the big power run game. It hasn't come true for Virginia Tech. So they're one of my disappointments so far out of the gate. They lost to Vandy, have not looked the part. So, yeah, Rutgers is a strong team. Let's see how they look in another Power 5 game. I'm not so sold on the quarterback, but I think their other strengths are at running back and O-line and defense. So that's enough to grind out a W.
I want to go in the Big Ten for a moment. And again, this isn't a marquee matchup, but it's more of a how bad could this really be when you look at what LSU is doing, but UCLA. We saw what Indiana did, and I know a lot of people are buying into Indiana, but also looking at, boy, this could be even worse than what people thought with UCLA. Is this a team that you could even scratch out 3 wins with what you've seen from UCLA at this point?
Yeah, talking disappointments, they're definitely one of my disappointments out of the gate. I had them around 12th or 13th in the Big Ten, which doesn't sound that great, but that was higher than most had them, and they've really come out flat. They look like one of the worst teams in the country. Almost lost to Hawaii in the opener, and then turned the ball over like crazy against Indiana and couldn't stop anybody. But yeah, you speak of their schedule. Look at this. It's LSU Saturday. Then you have top 10 matchups against Oregon, Penn State. Then you got Minnesota and Rutgers. They'll be underdogs in both of those. Then you got Nebraska, Iowa, Washington, USC. I think that could be they're not going to be favored in a single game until Thanksgiving weekend against Fresno. Even that one's up for grabs. So, yeah, this is going to be one of the worst teams in the country. I don't see many W's. Definitely bowl season's out, and they need to fix a lot of things.
Mr. Unfiltered, Mike Gundy, and Utah play in Stillwater. Very interesting matchup. Could be just usual. This is going to be the Big 12 marquee matchup. Cam Rising is questionable. Oklahoma State's at home. How do you see this matchup turning where Utah was a favorite with Rising? Now they're a slight underdog of about a field goal in Stillwater.
Yeah, well, the big storyline with Utah has been injuries the last couple of years, and especially at the quarterback spot. And unfortunately, against Baylor in the second game, Rising was scrambling, got hit out of bounds into a Gatorade cooler, and broke two of his fingers or dislocated two fingers. So it's more of the same for Utah. It's quarterback concerns, it's injuries. And it's still questionable. So that's why that line is fluctuating, because we saw what they had behind him. It's Zach Wilson's younger brother, Isaac Wilson. And I think he has a bright future, but as a true freshman, 18-year-old, the game is going very fast for him. And yeah, so in this one, it's two of the premier programs in this new conference, two of the longest tenured head coaches in America with Weddingham and Gundy. So two real icons. I think I still like Utah. I think it's one of the best defenses in the country. Now, I'm concerned they haven't been able to generate a run game, so they need to fix that rushing attack if they're going to be without Cam Rising. But I still like Utah; they're more proven to me. Oklahoma State, I don't think is the top team in the conference. I'm still sticking with Utah.
Brett, Oklahoma not used to being a touchdown dog, or at least just under a touchdown dog. And with what you see from Tennessee, you see 6.5, and how Tennessee's played out, how Oklahoma's played out. Is there a case to be made that maybe Tennessee could be favored by more?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. This is my best bet of the week, was Tennessee minus 6.5. I love it. I think their offense is one of the best in the country. I think you have a Heisman candidate forming with Nico. And, they're scoring like crazy. And I know that Oklahoma has a strong defense. It's veteran. It was a top 10 unit last year on defense for them. A lot are back. Even if you call that a strength versus strength and eliminate those two, Tennessee's O versus Oklahoma's D, look at the flip side, where Tennessee's defense, I think, is going to smother Oklahoma's offense. I think Tennessee's defense doesn't get enough credit. Their defensive line is one of the best in the country. James Pierce could be the number one pick overall next April. So I like that mismatch to really separate them. And I think Tennessee runs away with it in a nice welcome gift to the SEC for Oklahoma. Their schedule's brutal, and it gets started right away Saturday.
Let's talk about the ACC. You don't need to comment on this game unless you want to. The ACC is wide open. I think Florida State, at some point we have to accept it isn't just a good team that's gotten off to a poor start. It's a bad team playing to their level. They play Cal. Cal is getting 2.5. I will watch this game because 0-4 is 0-4. But there's another game that intrigues me, and there's a huge spread in a wide-open ACC outside of Miami at the top. Thoughts on North Carolina State and Clemson? Wolfpack are nearly a 3-touchdown underdog.
Yeah, that's a huge spread. When I'm starting to run my advanced numbers here for the 2024 season and seeing how these games are stacked up, opponent-adjusted metrics and all that, I need a couple more data points to release it. But so far, NC State's grading poorly. I mean, they are really rough so far in the numbers. When you watch them, it's discombobulated. They almost lost their FCS game in the opener, and they got blown off the field by Tennessee, 51-10. So I can understand why there's a big spread. Clemson, yeah, they got blown out by Georgia, but they bounced back. I think they have their offense back in full gear here with Klubnik. So I'll go with Clemson big. The other one, yeah, you got to watch a train wreck. I mean, it's Florida State. They're 0-3. The only Power 5 team in the country without a win so far. The only 0 for right now. So, and Cal's tough. I mean, Cal beat Auburn. They're coming in 3-0 themselves with a nice running back with Jaden Ott and proven defensive coach Justin Wilcox. So, yeah, only a field goal margin. This could be 0-4, guys. So, yeah, you got to watch that one, too. You got to tune in.
You have an upset special?
Oh, upset special. Let me scan through here. Well, it's not going to be the big noon kickoff, which I think sets a record for biggest spread of a game day show. It's 40 points for Ohio State over Marshall there. That's ridiculous. I think I'll say Michigan. I mean, that's an upset on the books. It's a touchdown underdog at home against a higher ranked team. I'll go Michigan. And a quick scroll.
Could I
No, I'm
interest
just
you
gonna
in
stick with that,
Arkansas?
guys.
Could I
Yeah.
interest you in Arkansas winning at Auburn?
I would be very interested in that. I think Arkansas might be the better team straight up. Auburn has some problems at quarterback, and although they recruited really well at receiver, you got to have a guy that can get the ball out to them. And Peyton Thorne is not working out so far. I think they are switching it, and so that's a mystery offense right there. So I'll take Arkansas there on the road.
Hey, great stuff. Enjoy the weekend. Always enjoy the content and the conversation, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy. Good luck tonight.
That's Brett Ciancia from Pick Six Previews. I like USC over Michigan because I think that coaching will matter in this game, and I think Sharon Moore has a less than Big Ten coaching staff at Michigan, which is wild to say because we trusted Harbaugh with his assistants, the hires he made. I don't like Michigan's staff.
I actually think SC might rout them.
I'm not going to go that far.
Yeah.
But I like SC in this game. I think Moss plays well on the road. If you're going to,
I mean, like 14, 17.
Yeah.
I don't mean 30 or anything like that, but
it's a mini Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I mean,
and it's a CBS game.
Yeah.
People's minds are going to be blown. It's not being played on January 1. It's a conference matchup, and it's on CBS.
Yep.
It's a lot to unpack there.
Iowa, Minnesota. I feel weird saying this, but I like Iowa a lot. Like a lot.
Why do you feel weird about saying that? They're the better team.
I think they are the better team, but this is the whole can you trust Iowa? And I know that the spread's only 3 points and quarterback play is woeful again, but I am not sold on Minnesota. And I think somehow maybe Brosmer, is he even worse than McNamara? Is he worse than Callie McManus that they had? I don't know. I don't think they've upgraded a quarterback, to be perfectly honest. And so I think the one strength in this game that's going to stand out more than anything is Iowa's defense. And I think it's worth well more than 3 points in this game. So that one is, if there's one that I feel the most confidence as far as my confidence level, this would be a 10 on Iowa covering against Minnesota.
Lee Sterling, he has some thoughts on a couple of games we've just spoken of. He'll join us next from Paramount Sports on 1620 The Zone. All right, week number 4 of the college football season, week number 3 of the NFL. They both got started last night. Jets demolished the Pats 24-3. Lots on the docket. Our good friend Lee Sterling from Paramount Sports off a good weekend joins us. Good morning, Lee.
It was a good game last night. For us, we actually, that was probably one of the easiest two-team 6-point teasers we ever had. We had the Jets as a pick'em in the under 45.5. So
Ooh,
had that, you could go to sleep at halftime.
That was a good night to be a good friend of Paramount Sports.
All right.
Let's dive into the game of most importance in the nighttime tomorrow night. Tennessee goes to Oklahoma. As you know, the Vols are on fire. And then there's the storyline of Josh Heupel. Won a national championship there in 2000, then got fired 14 years later as the OC. He brings Tennessee in 10 years later. They're rolling. Oklahoma's first SEC game. Don't know that they can block for Jackson Arnold. I don't know about this matchup. Touchdown favorite. How do you see the Vols in Norman against the Sooners?
So if Tennessee was at home, I'd probably lay 2 touchdowns. I think they would blow out Oklahoma. Going on the road might be a different animal. Now, the look-ahead line last week before both teams played was 3.5. After Tennessee won 71-0, the line jumped all the way up to 7, even 7.5 some places. I think they're the better team, but sometimes, you go into a tough venue, and it's not so easy. Nico is special quarterback, got 6 really good receivers, but this is his first true road game. He's had a couple neutral site games. The Vols' road games last year versus ranked opponents resulted in a 14-point loss at Alabama and a 29-point loss at Missouri. I just think that we're going to see sometimes these games where you go back and play, where you played football, you won a national title. These storybook endings don't work out so well. I think the Vols' defensive backs are going to get exposed here. I think they're really weak, maybe the worst in the SEC, worse than Vanderbilt's here. Wrong team favorite, guys. Oklahoma outright 30-20.
Wow.
Okay. That's huge, Lee.
So we've seen this line move. Earlier in the week, it was Utah favored. Now the status of Cam Rising has now put Oklahoma State laying the 2.5 points. So how does this one play out?
What do you think Cam Rising's worth for the difference from him playing to them going to the backup?
3 points.
All right, so Oklahoma State was a 3-point favorite. Now Utah's a 2-point favorite, putting it 5. I think he's worth 12, 13 points. I think his backups are that inexperienced and he is that good. I have that as the biggest difference from one quarterback to the backup in college football. He's experienced. He's smart. His play fakes are incredible. He's a leader. I don't know what kind of pro he's going to be, but he is that much of a difference maker. Oklahoma State's defense really struggled versus Arkansas at home. They gave up over 600 yards. That usually translates into 45 to 55 points, but somehow they only gave up 31 points in that game. Ollie Gordon, their star running back, who had over 1,800 yards last year, last 2 games, only 90 yards on 34 carries. I think Cam Rising's going to do a number on this defense. I like Utah here, 30-23.
Let's talk about the Floyd of Rosedale game between Iowa and Minnesota. It's a nighttime game tomorrow night in Minneapolis. 6 of the last 8 meetings, the winner has scored less than 30. The total is 35.5. So it's another weekend where Iowa has a low total, but Iowa's offense has put up some points. This is a night where it seems like Iowa is at a point where it's kind of like the crucial stage. They don't want to fall back to 500. Don't want to lose to their rival for the second straight year. They're only a slight favorite on the road. How does this play out between Iowa and Minnesota to kick off the Big Ten?
So I thought Minnesota was the better team when they lost opening week to North Carolina. Just sometimes the breaks just don't go your way. Obviously, people will point to the last-second field goal. That was one of them. But there was 5 or 6 plays that if any one of those plays goes their way, they win that game. I think something's wrong with Iowa, except for Caleb Johnson on offense. I think, Cade McNamara, I'm not sure whether he's having trouble seeing over the line, whether he's got an injury they're not disclosing. He just doesn't look like the same guy when he came over in the transfer portal. Max Brosmer is starting to come on for Minnesota, and he looks comfortable. in this offense now. They finally have found a running back, a bell cow back, and at home, I'll take Minnesota plus the points in a low-scoring game. Minnesota pulls off the upset. They go over the total, too, by a point, 20-16.
Wow. USC in the Big House, a huge Big Ten matchup, huge marquee matchup of the old and the new of this conference. USC is a 5.5-point favorite in the Big House. Does that hold for the Trojans?
So the Trojans are clearly better than last year, much better. They picked up a bunch of guys, like 6 different starters in the portal on defense. They're 2-0 straight up and against the spread. They beat Utah State 48-0. Utah State was playing a backup quarterback. Their starter isn't even good. And opening week, they beat LSU. And now I'm looking at LSU after the USC game. I'm not thinking this team may not be that good at all. I mean, their defense gave up 33 to South Carolina. So I just think that Michigan might start coming up now. They were starting Davis Warren. He has 6 interceptions on the year. He was a no threat. Now they're going to go to a dual threat quarterback, Alex Orji, who I thought should have been the starter all along. If you watch the spring game tape, he's just much more dynamic, gives them a different dimension here. So from going from the no threat to the dual threat quarterback here, I think USC is going to find out what big boy football is all about. Michigan dominates the offensive and defensive lines here. Wrong team favored again. Michigan outright 24-20.
You got some chaos on this weekend if you're in the world of Lee Sterling. If you say that there'll be chaos in Lincoln, then people are going to be a little bit concerned. But as you know, Lee, good teams win, great teams cover. Nebraska has covered 3 straight weeks. Do they cover a 4th straight week?
Well, they're off to their best start since 2016. Defense has held all 3 opponents under 10 points. Very impressive. They can throw the football, finally. They've found their quarterback. In fact, both teams, if you add both of the totals, they've held the 6 opponents to a combined 46 points. We know that Nebraska went in to upset Illinois last year on a Friday night, just like this. And I think that they're going to be fired up here, Illinois. They're like the same team. It seems like every year it's the same Illinois, nothing special. Got to get them in 2nd and long and 3rd and long, and that's where you can take advantage of them here. A slight concern is Northern Iowa held the ball last week for 38 minutes. I think Nebraska's the better team, but over a touchdown might be a little too much. I haven't won in the game 24-18, but I'll take Illinois plus the points, but I think Nebraska wins the game.
Lee, as we always enjoy a free play, and one of the hotter teams and more exciting teams in the Big Ten, at least as of now, is Indiana taking on Charlotte with a big number, laying 28. How do we get involved?
All right, first 5 callers, we'll give them Indiana and Charlotte on me. 800-400-9741. Again, the number 800-400-9741. And our most popular promotion goes this weekend. Normally, you've got to be a monthly or season subscriber here. World's famous Baker's Dozen. You get 13 games combined Saturday and Sunday, just $97. We've had some 12-1, 11-2, and 10-3 finishes on this promotion. And I'm so sure I'm going to have a winning card. If I don't go 7-6 or better, next weekend is free. And I'm also going to give them baseball. We had the Dodgers last night on their team total over 4.5 runs. They scored 20 runs. You want to come on board, we'll give you baseball through Sunday for free also. So Baker's Dozen, 13 games, $97, just one place, ParamountSports.com.
Lee, have a great weekend.
You too, guys. Take care.
Lee Sterling from Paramount Sports, advocating chaos in college football this weekend.
Holy hell.
He's put himself out there.
I know.
We got the scoreboard, and we'll we'll give him credit, or we will hammer him next week. But
wow,
he's got his system. I mean,
he does.
There's not a lot of people that are talking about Oklahoma.
Nope.
Yeah.
Or
not
Michigan.
a lot of people. Or Michigan winning.
Made me second guess what I said last segment.
Oh man,
Well, he's making me feel foolish about taking Iowa. I'm confident in Iowa, but I'm sticking with it.
One thing that you could interest me about Michigan, I think with the quarterback change, they're going to be more run-centric.
True.
Their wide receivers are not very good. It's not all on the quarterback. Their wide receivers aren't super talented, but they may run the football a little bit more, which actually may help them. But again, I don't know. I like what USC is doing. USC, I think, will look like what a Big Ten team should look like. And it just comes down to, can they force a quarterback on the road to make mistakes? If not, consider this. 3 of the first 4 wins by Moss would be over ranked teams.
Yeah. How about that?
Uh-huh.
And one and a major one on. I mean, regardless of what people think about Michigan in that environment as well, if you can get that, that's also a pretty big mark on the resume there.
Hey, I'm sticking with it. I said the team that starts the year in the preseason top 10 that will finish the year unranked is Michigan. Still sticking with it. All right, we're at halftime. The band is on the field. They're going to do a special 400th sellout performance. They're going to spell out 400. We're going to go away for a little bit. Then we'll come back and we'll get ready for the third quarter. But we'll talk about Memorial Stadium because tonight when they turn the lights on, 400th sellout of the old grandma on 10th and Vine, which hosts a ranked game. You have to go back 4 head coaches and 132 games. That's how long it's been. Plus, there's also the long streak of Nebraska not winning games against a ranked opponent. All could come to an end tonight, and so could the world. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
Halftime is brought to you by Omaha Whiskey Fest 2024, the largest whiskey fest in the region, coming your way September 28th, Hilton, Omaha. Also the home of Big Red Overreaction next Saturday after the Purdue game.
All right, 7 o'clock tonight, Nebraska, Illinois. It is a football Friday Fiesta game day, kids. It's real, Nebraska and Illinois tonight. There's Nick, there's Jimmy, I'm Gary. Coming up at the top of the 9 o'clock hour, Mike Schaefer. What's up with Cortez Mills and Dawson Merritt? And how does Shea feel about this game after his virtual game? Saw Dylan Riola throw 6 interceptions and not get benched, but rally Nebraska to win the game.
Who does he think he is, Jalen Daniels?
2 pick sixes in this one, too. No good. 30-28.
Got to be careful with Scott in the defensive backfield for Illinois. Also, Matt Verzal will stop by. Isn't it? Well, Larry, let me pose this question this way, because Bielema in his career, and by the way, Bielema in his first conference game at his 3 different stops is 4-11, and he must be thinking, "Guy, I can't even catch a break," because 9 of those 15 games that have been a conference opener with Bielema at Wisconsin, Arkansas, or now Illinois have been against ranked teams. So he'll do it again tomorrow, or do it again tonight. But he's 4-11 in his first game in conference play. But we always associate a Brett Bielema team as tough in the trenches. They're going to smack you in the mouth. It's going to be smash mouth football. Isn't it interesting how tonight's matchup has been about, it's going to be a physical game, and in a less than a year time, Nick, where last year where Nebraska was the more physical team and Illinois said, "Nah, we ain't playing that game, homie. We are Air Illinois." Threw the ball 47 times, only ran it 19 against Nebraska. That a year later, Nebraska is known as the physical team, a team that in the trenches will have an advantage against a team that has built the reputation and a coach that has built the reputation off winning the trenches?
It is. And remember what Nebraska was coming off of, too, just getting thoroughly manhandled by the eventual national champion. That it was a formula for Nebraska that was always preached by Matt Rule last year, that they wanted to be physical. They wanted to be able to establish a run. Remember last year when was leading into last season when Marcus Satterfield said they were actually going to huddle a lot too, and we got all really excited about that. But I think it was that game where, given what they were coming off of against Michigan, having that well-documented Sunday practice where they just said enough's enough, let's get after it, and then they took the fight to Illinois, I would argue that was when Nebraska established the real first true glimpse of a physical Matt Rule defensive line, being able to establish the run as well, and having that type of road presence there in a short week of preparation too. So I think that game had a lot of significance of basically starting the clock of what Matt Rule wanted to be as far as a reputation, a very physical team that you're going to have 4 quarters of punches thrown in that if you wanted to beat them.
There's also the part of and I think an identity when you say you want to be physical is you also have players that can do it. Like Nebraska has a running back that likes to run into contact. Like Dowdell is a guy that is built to be a physical offense. And then you mix in guys that are sexier, and so then you make the jump up where you start to look at some of the top echelon teams where I think Ohio State, for example, Ohio State can be a physical run team, but they can also be a team that can be flash and dash. That's eventually, I think, what you'd like to be your goal, but you got to start somewhere. And so they started with the physicality, but then even more so on the other side of the ball. And I keep going back to this. I think this is a huge advantage for Nebraska tonight. I look at the trenches, and I think Nebraska is plus on the offensive line, plus on the defensive line. I don't know how Illinois, unless Nebraska struggles again with initial tackling and a guy slips out and gets, instead of a 3-yard carry, it turns into a 6-yard carry. I don't know how Illinois runs the football against Nebraska. I just don't. Unless it's Altmaier who takes off and gets outside of the pocket and then could cause some issues. This is a night that'll be one. I feel like it'll be one on defense, but one in a Big Ten West tribute game that Nebraska has a distinct advantage.
Interesting that you bring up the quarterback run game, because I thought that this was interesting that what Tony White brought up about quarterbacks that typically give Nebraska problem in the quarterback run game, especially when everything breaks down, that he has a tendency to go basically up the pocket, up the middle, as opposed to attacking the perimeter. And we've seen that has been there. And I think it was Brandon Vogel who also brought that part of it up, is that has been an area of the field that when quarterbacks, all else is breaking down, that they will attack that part as opposed to the perimeter. And you've been able to get yards there. That on third down, because this is where I think Nebraska down and distance wise, and I thought you brought up a really good point about where Nebraska was on first down defensively and really setting an offense off schedule, that if you get into those 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 situations, coverage is good. You're getting a little bit of a pressure, but Altmaier is able to slip up and get a first down. You get enough of those extending drives similar to what Northern Iowa did, then all of a sudden you're taking more possessions away. You're starting to win the battle of time of possession, which could be a factor in tonight's game as well. That would be an area of, okay, if you can sustain that for 4 quarters, then that would be a big problem. That's the part that of the quarterback run game that we think of Luke Altmaier. You're not like, okay, the guy's going to take off a lot. He's a superior athlete, and that's what they want to do. But he does have an ability to scramble a little bit, and the area that he tends to, scramble as far as the middle of the field and instead of getting out on the edge, that could be something. But I mean, going back to where I think Nebraska is going to completely swallow up Illinois is what they do defensively against the run game. And then it leads you to last year where you put an Illinois offense that, again, a quarterback that has done a great job of taking care of the football this year, but you start to give him more opportunities to turn the ball over because you're passing in an uncomfortable level of volume that's uncomfortable for really any team unless you're an air raid, which Illinois clearly isn't. Then you're playing into the hands of Nebraska defensively, just like you did last year. So they established that. I still think that first down stat that you brought up about what Nebraska defensively is doing against Illinois, I think it's huge tonight if we want to see something similar as far as the volume of passes that Altmaier had to throw last year and eventually starts to make mistakes.
See, I think if you can make them one-handed, they'll throw the ball. I don't think Pat Bryant and Tommy Hill will be matched up. Franklin will be their most key wide receiver. Now, the other thing about their passing game is you look at Bryant and Franklin, and that's a good combination, and Franklin's a transfer from UTSA. Again, I think Hill will neutralize Bryant to an extent, so it becomes Franklin on what he's able to do in the passing game. But after those 2 top wide receivers, it's a huge drop-off on who is their next option. And I think if you can make them one-dimensional, and I think Tommy Hill will lock up with Bryant, what does Franklin do if he can't do anything? Yep. That's why I keep saying, can Illinois score 14 points against this defense? I just don't see it. The only way I see it is, again, Nebraska turns the football over, and then one area where I think Illinois should worry Nebraska is the special teams game, where they've got good place kicking, but they also have had 3 20 or more yard punt returns this year. And Nebraska won't see the kind of punt return game trying to defend it like they have in the first 3 games. So that would be an area Nebraska gives them something, or they get a special team score that gets them above 14. Yeah. But I'm sticking to it. I don't see how they score more than 14 in this game.
Yeah, and that's the other part about the special teams is if you're to believe that Nebraska is, or if Illinois is going to win this game, I think there's that third phase that has to come into play, because I was also thinking about not only what you laid out with the field goal kicking in the return game, but also Nebraska, if they're having inconsistencies. Brian Bushini did not punt last week. The week before, he was great against Colorado. But if he's inconsistent and you're starting to play the field position, trying to flip the field when Nebraska is able to force that issue, and I'm sorry, when Illinois' defense is able to force that issue and turn Nebraska away, when Bushini has to punt, I mean, are you getting everything you hope to get out of him when it does come to all of those little things of giving the offense for Illinois a short field to work with? So that I still want to see if Brian Bushini is what he showed against Colorado, because we didn't get to see that last week, because we know his ceiling, but we also know that there's that inconsistencies. And I'm sorry, but 2 games, because it's essentially how, when he's punted in 2 games, we haven't seen that consistency. If you can go another game where he's giving you over 40 yards, that's another part of this, that if you're giving Illinois a short field and putting more pressure on the defense, love their quick change ability and love their ability to defend. But if they're put in that position too many times, and again, that's an advantage for Illinois.
When we come back, how should tonight be celebrated? When Nate Rohr makes the big announcement of attendance of 86,000 blank, 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 blank. 400 sellout tonight. We'll dive into that when we come back. Mike Schaefer, top of the hour, some recruiting, and also his thoughts on Nebraska and Illinois kick off the Big Ten season as Nebraska tries to get to 4-0 and erase some streaks that are in the year of streak breaking. They'll do that tonight. Chafe and Verse still to come on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back in. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy is here as well. Tonight, 7 o'clock, Nebraska and Illinois at Memorial Stadium. Kick off the Big Ten season. USC is in Lincoln for a pregame. And then, of course, Big Red Overreaction will be immediately following the game from Lincoln. We own Lincoln. And it is a special night because it will be announced as the 400th sellout. 31 million tickets have been sold since 1962. The person that had the job of selling tickets on game day out of the ticket office hasn't had a job since 1962. And I think what tonight is a tribute to the loyalty and the routine of the Nebraska football fan. And I say loyalty, Nick, because there's this trend on TikTok, which you guys would like to get on there. It's nowhere near your Talk to algorithm.
Was a heartwarming show.
But there's a TikTok trend where they go, we're from Nebraska. That's what we do. And I thought about that from the standpoint of Nebraska football, Memorial Stadium. We're from Nebraska. That's what we do. We are the most loyal group of fans that you will find anywhere because there are a lot of reasons to give up on the program, to go away, but it rewards the loyalty of people that go in that stadium and have stayed close to that program through all of the ups and downs, the good and the bad, and telling your kids about the 90s, and they go, the 90s? I had to watch the 2005 team. And you're like, well, but you're still a fan, right? So I think it's a tribute to the loyalty of the fans. And then why I say the tribute to the routine, because we have a lot of listeners this morning that are on a Friday with a game day and we're doing a show. They're telling us, all right, hey, I'm in the parking lot at 11. A friend of mine took a picture, sent it to me. There's already people lined up to get into the parking lots that open up at 11 in Lincoln. But we all have a routine if you're going to a game. You know what time you need to leave your house to get to your parking spot so you don't get caught in traffic. You have a route that you take where you get off on 80. Maybe you take a shortcut that you don't tell anybody about, but you find your way into your spot. You have a routine of when you get to your spot, what do you take out of your vehicle for if you're tailgating or where you're going first to tailgate. You have a routine on game day is I'm going to stop by this. I'm going to stop by that. I got to walk by this. I got to walk around the stadium on the outside. I got to stop by this statue. I got to go rub the elephant because that's good luck. And then your routine is we got to get into the stadium early. I am always blown away by the one thing about this fan base is people respect and know the game of football and love the game of college football, whether it be the team that's in red in that stadium or the other team. They just like the sport, that they get to the stadium early. They want to go see warm-ups. They want to see how guys look. They want to see players come out. And your significant other is like, are you crazy? Why are we in the stadium 90 minutes before kickoff? But you have a routine where you sit, when you know to jump up and go to the bathroom, when you know to sit down in your seat, because if you jump up and you cheer a play, you're going to lose your spot. Okay, so your butt cheek is now in the aisle and not on a plank. And then you have a routine after the game. You might hang around and you let the kids, after the band departs, go on the field and throw the football around. And then your routine is you get in the car and you drive home and you listen to Big Red Overreaction and you talk about the game. And you know what? In a place that is rewarded for the loyalty and the routine of the fan, you're going to turn around and do it again the next Saturday.
And you're right. The routine's a big part of it because you think about the only reason a fan wouldn't go if they are regularly attending games, and that's usually a major event. Maybe there's an illness, there's unfortunately maybe a death in the family, maybe there is that wedding that they just cannot get out of, and they will reluctantly go to the wedding. I mean, the things that keep the fans away from Memorial Stadium, I think, is all you need to know about the loyalty, because it's usually something that is major in their life. I also think about what this fan base has endured compared to other programs that would be going through something similar, where you could be a football program that has a lot of support, the attendance is good. You're almost sold out every game. You get a couple of sellouts here and there every year, but we know how that wavers when it comes to, especially, I mean, I know how, as I've gotten older, I value convenience more than anything. And if it seems like, yeah, what I'm going to go watch is not the best product in the world. And God, then I got to go all the way down there. Then I got to deal with parking. Then I got to deal with this. And you start to almost talk yourself out of it. The amount of people that talk themselves into it, even during a 3 or 4 or 5 win season, or when you just have been punched in the gut so many times that you continue to believe. And I think you're right. I think it's the genuine love for this sport, but I think it's just the genuine love for knowing that they're part of the support for those student athletes. Because I mean, you heard Matt Rule say this last year, and we've heard other coaching staffs talk about it when they witnessed that first game day atmosphere, and they all mention the same thing that you brought up, and that is how many people are there during warmups. And that scene before the Colorado game where the student section was essentially filled while warmups were going on. And I know sometimes that can be a rarity, but the unwavering support, regardless of what the team is doing, or because we know the first game of the year, no matter what people are saying, good or bad about the team's prospects that year, you always feel like there's that hope. But we're talking about in the middle of maybe what is a dreadful season. And yes, your eyes will tell you, okay, there looks like there's some seats that are empty. But the fact that the majority of the stadium, even in some of the most lean years and lean times during those seasons, is at 80% capacity, 90% capacity physically with butts in the seat, also says a lot about it. So, I mean, we know this. It's easy to support winners. It's easy to come back year in and year out because your program is always nationally relevant, top 25, even top 10 relevant. It's when those fans continue to show up in a almost decade that has existed where you haven't even made a bowl game, where you haven't even eclipsed 5 wins, to endure that and still show up time after time after time. I think more than anything, that's what this sellout to me means. It's not just the fact that this spans all the way back to the 60s, but what this program has endured as of late, yet that support has not wavered.
Here is Jeff. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning. Great show, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, I just wanted to, regarding Nebraska football fans, just in general, I agree with everything you guys have said. You know, and everybody has a vice, right? Nebraska football for this state is this state's vice. It's like the one place, the 4 hours out of a day where you can go and just kind of forget about everything else, about work, about whatever might be a stress in your life, and just forget about it and watch football. And you know, I think there's a scene from a movie I think that sums up what Nebraska football really is, and it's a scene from Hoosiers. I'm sure I know you guys have seen it. I'm sure many people out there have seen the movie. But there's a scene in the movie. It's nighttime, and they're headed to a game, and the bus is leading the way, and the cars are all lined up behind it, and they just all the headlights of the entire town following the team to the next game. That's Nebraska football.
That is a great connection, Jeff. I agree with you. You know, it's different. Not a lot of places are built like this. It's the only Division I football program in the entire state, and we only have 1.9 million people here. And it's the identity of the state of Nebraska.
It really is, and it just there's really no. I have nothing else to say. I guess there's really no other way to say it or sum it up.
Thank you, Jeff. Good phone call. Appreciate it. Have a good Friday. There's the other thing about that stadium, and trust me, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly of that stadium. It's over 100 years old. It needs some refinement, but it's ours. You know, you're not getting rid of it. You'd like to spruce it up a little bit. Everybody knows that it needs to be patched up here or there, but it's ours. And even in our role as media that maybe, you know, don't go to games as in the fan role in the stadium, in the seats, like we used to, there is still something about that place when you drive from Omaha to Lincoln and you're on I-80 and you can look to your left and you start to see the skyline of Lincoln and you see the penis of the plains, and then you move to the right and you see Memorial Stadium from a long distance. And then when you get off of 80 and you take 180 into downtown Lincoln and you're getting closer and you can see Pinnacle Bank Arena on the right. And then on the left, you see it. And who hasn't been driving by and you, as you're driving, try and take a picture as you're driving into downtown Lincoln? Or I think this is where it really hit me. One of the first times I ever was in Lincoln and saw Memorial Stadium. When you are driving down Vine Street and you are inching closer to where Memorial Stadium is located at 10th, and you start to see it in the distance, because you can see like the press box area and you can see the lights. And as you start to make your way down Vine and you get closer and closer and it becomes larger and larger. And then finally, when you get right there and you're about a block away and it sits right there in front of you, man, if you don't get the feels, and then the other part of getting the feels about that place, and I've told this a lot about the stadiums that I go to. If I can walk into a stadium and it gives me an emotion, you got a banger. There is no one, and I mean no one, and if I'm off, please call us, that when you walk into Memorial Stadium and you are making your way up the ramps or out of the elevator and you come through the vomitory and you come up, and the first time that you see the stadium and you see the sea of red, if that doesn't do something for you, I mean, all the place elicits emotions for a fan.
Yep.
That it's pretty damn cool to be in a place that loves the game of football just like you, and that's a cathedral to the game that has stood for over 100 years, and tonight we'll have the place full again for every home game since friggin' 1962.
The feels part of it, I think a lot of us would channel back to when we were young. We remember our first game. And that's the other thing, too, when you can remember in detail the first game that you ever went to. And for me, it was actually a Clete Blakeman game in 87 against Kansas. But similar thing, you come out and there's the field, there's everybody in red. And not to steal what our last caller brought up as far as a movie quote, but I'll throw another movie in because I don't even know if it really happened when Dan Rudiger started or not. But when his dad says in the movie, this is the most beautiful sight these eyes have ever seen. You know, that's a grown man that grew up loving Notre Dame football, apparently in the movie, that is, and had never been there. But as a kid, you're probably not going to articulate it that way, but it's going to stop you in your tracks, and you're just going to kind of look around where you don't even know how to react. I remember that feeling. I know everybody who's been to games remember that feeling. They remember every detail about that game that they went to. They remember the players that I was excited to see Steve Taylor play quarterback, but he wasn't in that game. But it was still like the most amazing scene that I can ever remember. And then this is interesting because it kind of came full circle last week. I'm with a group of friends that are Northern Iowa alum, and some of them had been to a game. And when they went in, they said, damn, I didn't think it'd be this packed for this game. I'm like, it's another sellout, because we come in from the north side. So we're looking directly over to the south end zone, and you're seeing, again, the first thing I looked at to see was the student section all the way filled to the very top of the South Stadium, which it was. It's overwhelming when you see it at its capacity, and you come out in certain times of the game. Like if you're coming out right before the tunnel walk and you're hearing the Husker power going back and forth of the stadium, and even opposing fans get goosebumps. And here's the other thing that I experienced a little bit of this, because I was also at the game with a couple fans that are Iowa fans. They get really annoyed by how packed and how Nebraska claims that sellout streak, and they want to poke holes in it. But I know for a fact, deep down inside, if you had the same thing going on at your stadium, you would completely embrace it. Like that's the other true side of like how cool it is when it actually, it drives a jealousy streak to other fan bases that they want to kind of knock it down,
poke
but then they
holes.
realize this is pretty sweet. They'll never maybe admit it to you, but
Yeah,
you can tell.
You can take away the 400. Just say since 1962, this is the most loyal fan base that exists in the game of college football.
Right.
And it doesn't need a number. It just needs the year.
Just to look at it.
That's a
I've
great
told you,
point.
I've told you boys this since obviously since I've known you here, Gary. And growing up, I'm 41 years old, and growing up far away from here, never thinking I would live anywhere near here one day. Always loved college football, and my dad used to give me crap all the time because I love watching Nebraska football. I wouldn't call it a guilty pleasure. It's just a pleasure. I love the style, love everything about it. Love this sea of red when they used to talk about how it's the third largest city in Nebraska. To me, it was like, hey, this is cool. I'd like to go see a game there one day. Again, never thinking that one day I would live there. And years later, I grew up, I marry into a family of diehard Nebraska fans. I mean, the whole thing. I always joked about fighting over tickets before our relatives even gone yet. It's the whole classic thing. And I still get those feelings when we go to a game there. We went to the Colorado game, and I just knew I would end up in that stadium for that game. But when I hear you two talk about this, and I very much respect the history and of it, and then of course you guys' personal stories with everything that you guys have been through with it, and even the people who listen and the people on the stream, I still get that feeling of, wow, subconsciously somebody was trying to tell me something 25, 30 years ago that one day that place would become a very big part of my life and my family's life. And when we moved here a couple years ago, to me, that was the biggest, like, okay, this is pretty damn cool. So to be sitting here and taking this in as my job, to hear these stories, this is the best. And it's the stuff you dream of. I'm a college football sicko, and I'm in the right place for it. And, I could listen to all you guys' stories for hours and never get bored of it because they're all different. I just apologize that my first game at Memorial Stadium is completely different than pretty much everyone because it was the 08 Missouri game that they lost 52-17. I'm very sorry for that. But I had been to many Nebraska games prior, especially in my hometown, just not in Lincoln until then. I've been to many more since.
Yeah, you were also at the 07 game in Lawrence, right?
I was.
Yeah.
And the
I was
05
too.
game.
Didn't like that.
Yeah. I'll take a quick break when we come back. There's another part of that stadium and the rewarding of the loyalty of fans that keep coming year after year after year. There's something unique about the stadium and Nebraskans that I'll share in a quick story when we come back. Mike Schaefer, top of the hour. Matt Verzal, who has been to a game most recently as a fan on the opposing sideline Saturday night. That's right. Trader joins us at 9:20 on 1620 The Zone. All right, Chase going to join us here in about 15 minutes. Jimmy was relaying his first game. Nick told you about his first game. How upset were you that Steve Taylor didn't play?
I was very upset. I used to run the option in the backyard with a plastic football thinking I was the next Steve Taylor. Then I didn't even realize growing up down the street I had the next great option quarterback that we were playing backyard football with Eric Crouch.
I mean, there was a guy named Jerry Godowski.
Yeah, he came later too.
Yeah, I mean, you could have been him. But
what is that supposed to mean?
I think you might have been closer to Jerry Godowski than Steve Taylor.
Oh, okay, I get it. That's
I mean, just the way that you prefer to run the option.
Yeah.
And I think Jerry Godowski, who by the way is back in Nebraska, living in Fremont, is one of the he's on the list of the underappreciated Nebraska quarterbacks. But the thing you can appreciate, all of us that live here and go to the old grandma on 10th and Vine, is we all have a memory. Like that's what that sport does. It's create memories, and the memories of the first game that you went to. You run into fellow Nebraskans and you talk about Memorial Stadium and you talk about the history and games and players and coaches and moments. And then you talk about going to a game, and almost everyone that you will encounter, regardless of age, from young to old, know the sights, the sounds, and the smells of their first game in Memorial Stadium. They know what the outcome was. They know who Nebraska played. They might have known a moment. Most importantly, they know who they went with. Maybe your parents took you. Maybe your grandparents took you. Or as a father, you took your son or daughter. I mean, all of those memories in your first trip to that stadium are ingrained. And you never lose that. You guys were rattling off your memories. I've told this story before numerous times on the show. My first game in Memorial Stadium, and remember, growing up in Des Moines, my family was Iowa football season ticket holders. But I became a Nebraska football fan because the Des Moines Register had a beat writer that would cover the Nebraska game day. And in the Des Moines Register, back in the day, the sports section on Sundays was the Big Peach. It was orange so that when you got your paper, you knew exactly where the sports page was. And I liked to read the sports page back as a young whippersnapper. Still do. But I would grab the sports page, and Iowa State recaps would be on the front page, but there would also be a Nebraska recap. And I was like, man, I really like Nebraska. And of course they were on TV. And then I would go to the local library. The Urbandale Library got the Omaha World Herald. And so I'd read the World Herald, and so I knew about Nebraska football. But November 11th, 1989, my mom brought me to my first Nebraska game at Memorial Stadium. And it was really the only game that we get tickets for because we were playing Kansas. And Kansas was brutal, but I really thought Tony Sands was a great running back.
That was mine in '87. Kansas.
But we went to the game. We sat in section 19, row 74, seat 4 and 5, and watched the game, and I was blown away. And Nebraska blew them out that day, 51-14. Kenny Clark had a monster game. And after the game, back then I collected autographs and I like to do all that kind of stuff. So we found out where the Nebraska players were coming out, where the locker room was, and that they were coming out of South Stadium. So I stood there, and I still have the program to this day of my first game at Memorial Stadium, and it was autographed by Jeff Mills. I didn't really know who Jeff Mills, I didn't know what he looked like. I knew that he'd had a big game and he was one of Nebraska's starting linebackers, but Jeff Mills signed my program. Those are my memories of the first game. And I think what makes the relationship between the fan base, that program, and that stadium is we all, in intimate details, can tell you about your first experience.
Yeah. And you remember when you leave too, that, and for you living out of state, maybe it wasn't as easy to get right back to a game, but you always wanted to know, okay, when can we go back next? And whether you came home with a pocket schedule, because, we didn't have the computer to just, punch on the internet and look at the old schedule or an app. You had to rely on the paper or a pocket schedule. You're looking at it, and I'm sure parents were probably getting annoyed. Can we go next week? Okay, well, Oklahoma's in town. We can get tickets to that, right? Yeah, not so easy. So that was the other thing, is the anticipation of wanting to be able to go again, because I know even with Reese, when he hasn't had a chance to experience an actual game day yet, But when we've gone to a Storm Chasers game or whatever it might be, any type of sporting event, even a high school football game, he leaves the same way that I remember leaving those types of events, especially Memorial Stadium. And that is, are they playing tomorrow? Can we go again tomorrow? Can we go again on Monday? And then throughout the week of school for him, and I'm sure I did the same thing. Is it Saturday yet? Are we going to see the Huskers yet? So it's always that you got a little piece of it. Now you can't wait to see it again. You can't wait to be a part of it again. And that's that addiction. And that's why I like when our caller said it was a vice, because I do. I think as you get older and you're more aware of, what it takes to actually get tickets and, the financial part of it, you still are all about it. And you still, regardless if the team is struggling or good, it's not even really a choice. I mean, if you're able to get there and you have access to the tickets, you're going to find your way there, and you don't care even how the game goes. It's just you feel like, hey, this is my vice. I can't kick this vice right now.
I tell you boys about my first game. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about my second game in that stadium, because it means a lot to me. And I talked about it during the break, Gary, that we took our engagement pictures. We did 2 sets of them. This makes sense. We did one in Lincoln. We did one in Lawrence. And so we did the one in Lincoln, and this is October of 11. We did it at what's now the rail yard. It didn't exist yet. It was kind of the area. My best friend from college did the pictures. It was great. And my dad flew up. And remember, same guy used to give me crap for watching Nebraska football, but he's going to go to the game with us. We go to the Ohio State game. Everybody knows how that game went, and everything went down. And it was to this day. And a picture came up on one of my memories the other day. To this day, my dad retires at the end of the year. He wants to come back and go to a game once he's retired. He's able to do that because the guy who did not like Nebraska had such a positive experience at that night at that stadium among those fans that he wants to do it again as a retired person. But my point to telling that story is, and I'm not just saying this, I sincerely mean, I don't even think my wife knows this, but at the end of my life, when they say your life flashes before your eyes, I guarantee you that day will be one of the days it flashes in my eyes. The whole damn day, the game, the everything. So Rex Burkhead will always have a special place in my heart because, damn, that was a hell of a game. That was a really, really good day and night.
Let's finish the hour with Knoxville Chris. Hello.
Morning, Gary. Happy game day.
Happy game day to you, my friend. Chris spelled with a K?
Yes, it is. So your first game was a week after my unofficial first game. My mom and dad went to the 88 Missouri game while she was 7 months pregnant with me. So unofficially, I was there. That's the day I became a friend. I became a fan. My first official game was '92 against Middle Tennessee State. A couple years later on. So. But no, the thing I want to talk about real fast here before you guys go to break is the '63 game, Oklahoma, and the impact nationally that had. And I think that's a piece of American history with what happened. Obviously, the day after Kennedy was shot, Nebraska, I believe, was told by the White House to play the game. They didn't want to. They weren't going to. And they went ahead and played it anyway. And I believe it was the only event happening the entire day. So just the impact that place has had on a national level. And then you go back to 2001 on September 20th. So things like that, the national impact that place has had, and leads to the point where is a museum at for fans to see that kind of stuff at? There's so much history to be seen. University needs to build some kind of museum. They had the funds to do it. Get it done. Let the fans enjoy that and see those pieces of history that place has had.
Hey, by the way, your first game, do you remember what the score was at halftime against Middle Tennessee?
I do not.
Yeah,
I know. So I know that there was a lot of concern. It was the first 1AA team Nebraska played in like 30 years, and it was like 7-3 at half. It was not good.
14-7 at halftime.
Yeah, they walked away later on though, but it was not a pretty. Not a pretty sight. I know later that year, October 31st, that was a sight of things to come though against Colorado. That was the signs of what was to come for the program. So they turned it around for sure later that year.
Yeah, Big Red Overreaction was ablaze that night. Hey, Chris, have a good weekend. Thanks for the call.
No problem, guys.
You'll like this one. Husker Viking on Twitter. My first game was Tom Osborne's 250th win against Oklahoma. We just destroyed them. Remember that one, 69-7.
Yeah, that was a blowout.
All right, Nebraska's won the 100th, 200th, and 300th sellout. Will they win the 400th? We got an hour to go. There's Nick, Jimmy, and we'll get through as many of these memories as possible of first game because there's a lot coming in. Thank you, by the way, for sharing those. Mike Schaefer, who has been to many games, has a really good story, if I remember correctly, on his first trip to Memorial Stadium. He'll join us next. There is some recruiting news involving Nebraska's targets and Matt Verzal in the last hour. Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. All right, last hour on a Football Friday Fiesta, actual game day, Nebraska, Illinois, later tonight. We welcome in our good friend from Husker 24/7, Mike J. Schaefer. Good morning, Chafe.
Good morning, guys. How we doing?
Good. I know that you've shared memories of your first game at Memorial Stadium, and we get the privilege of covering games in Memorial Stadium. I'm curious on when we see the Sea of Red and Nebraska with the large throng that are there every Saturday, the impact that it has in your world when you talk to players that are on recruiting visits. How soon does it come up that the crowd is overwhelming in that experience?
Well, I mean, the Colorado thing, the Colorado game, I mean, it was the first comment from every recruit. The atmosphere was incredible. The stadium was packed. I think it was impossible for people to notice. And they're engaged. I mean, that's like, so it's got to be twofold. I mean, Nebraska had over 80-some thousand for most of the last 7 years, but they haven't had a lot of reason to be as engaged as they were that night against Colorado. And so that's a big part of it. So you can have a huge amount of people, but if they're just sitting on their hands because the offense is struggling or the defense is struggling or the team can't seem to stay out of its own way, it's not going to have the same impact. When you can combine it with a defense that's engaged, an offense that's putting up points, a team that's playing well, Nebraska can impact the game. We saw that with Colorado. I think they're going to do that again tonight. I think the atmosphere is going to be terrific in Memorial Stadium tonight, and I think the defense is going to feed off of that. I wouldn't be surprised if whenever the Chasing 3 video comes out, we learn that Nebraska wanted to be on defense to start. One, because they want to play through that defense. Two, because you want to put Illinois on their heels right away, and what better way to do that than start the game, have it loud right off the first play, and your defense gets that advantage. So I think, the recruits always love the following Nebraska has, and especially if they recruit anybody out west, there's nothing like this out there. Mm-hmm. And even down south, there's not that many programs. You and I have both been to Georgia, Gary, and it was fantastic when I went that day. But there's a lot of games where, the Georgia, the crowd isn't going to be as big of an impact because they're just not there. I mean, the one thing that Nebraska fans have done is show up en masse 2 games, even when the team hasn't been very good. And so they're being rewarded now. And I think we see that reflected in kind of the way the atmosphere looks in 2024 versus certainly the last 7 years.
Shay, if you brought up Georgia and you think of college football must-see venues and a pilgrimage, if you will, to go to a certain venue, is that something that is unique about Memorial Stadium too? We see it on a weekly basis. We know about it. You grew up and now you've got a little one that I'm sure little Hud will be a big Husker fan as well, going to his first game in no time. But the fact that Memorial Stadium is considered to be one of those college football must-see venues and pilgrimage, yet it's the program itself hasn't endured consistent success compared to other places that maybe, like you guys saw Georgia and some of the other SEC venues. Does that make it stand out? Does that make it a little bit more unique than some of those other, what you would consider to be destination college football venues, because they continue to show up despite some really bad years?
I mean, I definitely can. It just shows you that there's a fan base that really cares. When you get kind of the stock quote of Nebraska doesn't have much else, or this is Nebraska's pro team, and that's what people are saying. Like, people care year round here in a way that they might not everywhere, because this is the sport, this is the team, this is what really truly matters. In the statewide conversation, like we can talk about everything else, but if Nebraska football is good, that is the biggest conversation. I mean, you guys are in the industry. You know what it's been like these last few weeks. Everybody wants to talk to you about this team right now. When has that happened in the last 7 years? And so that sort of energy is infectious. That stadium can be infectious in that way. Look, that's what people have been waiting for. They've been waiting to be engaged. They've been waiting to be mobilized. They've been waiting to have an opportunity to make it seem like game day actually cares. Or, excuse me, not that game day cares. The game day matters. It's one thing to be showing up, and you have to commend people who did it in 2022 when Nebraska is trotting out Chubba Purdy and they're 3-9 or 3-8, and you're playing Iowa and it's cold as hell or whatever it is, Wisconsin. and you have no opportunity to win that game, to go to a bowl game, but you still have fans that are in the stands for that. So this is the payoff. This year is supposed to be part of that payoff, and we're seeing it with how people react. And I think that he's engaging to the coaching staff over there, to the players. They're obviously feeding off of it, to the administration who are trying to figure out, how do you propel this thing forward? How do we take advantage of momentum of a fan base that's really kind of into things right now? And so all of that being said, I mean, Nebraska, when it's on, can be very, very special. Nebraska, when it's off, just shows you that there's people that are waiting for it to be special again. They're not necessarily going anywhere, that it's just laying dormant. That's why it's always kind of a sleeping giant. But there's definitely a different feeling around how things are on game day right now than there was a year or two ago.
Hey, let's jump into some recruiting. They will have local guys that'll be on the sidelines tonight, but two high-profile recruits that it's kind of been radio silence since they were last here. What's your vibe on Cortez Mills, who I know took a picture with a lot of Oklahomans last week, and then also Dawson Merritt?
Yeah, I mean, with Dawson, I can talk to a lot more because I talked with him. I think this is very much, if Nebraska keeps winning football games, it's going to be hard for him to kind of stay away. I think his family wants him at Nebraska. I think there's a lot of reasons that Nebraska is a good fit for him. I think it's probably a better profile fit athletically, what they want to do at linebacker than really even what Alabama wants to do. But I think it's hard for him to pass up what Alabama football can be to bet on Nebraska without seeing them continue this. I mean, he has an opportunity. He wants to play in major college football. Alabama gives him that opportunity immediately. Nebraska, you're betting on this thing actually being a rocket ship and not just being, a little bit of a fun start to the season and then it evens out and you look up Nebraska 7-5. And yeah, it's progress, but really, where are they in terms of the national conversation? Right now, they're in the mix. You win today, you're definitely in the mix. You keep winning, you get an undefeated team going to Indiana and then Ohio State. You're going to be in the college football playoff conversation at that point at the end of October. That's where Dawson Merritt wants to be. And so I think Nebraska has to keep proving it, and then their opportunity is going to be there with the Alabama commit. Cortez Mills is a tough one to read. I think there's a lot of teams that could be involved. I know NIL is going to be a huge factor. I think Oklahoma has really pushed the NIL thing and what's available for him and his family there. So I think that one's going to be a really kind of tough pull. I don't look for Nebraska to land Cortez Mills. I think they have a far better shot with Dawson Merritt. And even then, for as confident as I am that, if they continue to win, that they can get Dawson Merritt, I'm still not ready to put in a crystal ball yet. There's something that's holding me back there, and they're just going to have to prove it on the field. We'll see how it goes. He's going to Alabama, Georgia. If that just happens to be a Georgia rollover, I think that would go well for Nebraska. Maybe that'll be a big day of Nebraskans for Georgia, a chapter that just opens up on a one-day thing on September 28th.
Shafe, the start that Nebraska's gotten off to, the attention, obviously locally but nationally as well, has that allowed any other recruits, either that maybe weren't originally in the fold, all of a sudden given Nebraska a look, or anybody resurfacing right now just because, again, the start they're on, and if they get it to 4-0 after a victory tonight could make it even more attractive? Any of that happening right now with the start that Nebraska's off to?
Yeah, I think, behind the scenes, Nebraska is probably checking on a handful of guys. Now, whether they emerge or not, we'll have to see. I don't have any names that I'm comfortable throwing out right now. But what it does, I think, is really help you with 26 and 27. Because Nebraska, like I said, is part of the conversation again. And you have a day like today where you're the only college football game really going, and then you have an undefeated ranked team in Illinois. Like, you have an opportunity, like Nebraska has had a few of these games in recent years where you get to be the conversation. You're the only thing in the national sports scene for that day, unless people really, unless Shohei Otani hits 4 more home runs. I mean, there's probably going to be no bigger national story sports-wise than this game tonight, because it's 2 ranked teams, and Nebraska would have an opportunity to just continue to push itself forward. And visibility and being part of that national conversation is a huge way to build up your recruiting following, to build up kind of your cachet with those recruits when you get them on, get them on the phone, and all sorts of things like that. I mean, it's another huge opportunity tonight, and that's why I expect the atmosphere to be pretty good. Sorry, guys, losing my voice a little bit here.
No problem. It's been a week of cough drops for you. 2 Guardian fans on the show, and then a Cub fan. What do you think when the night is over? What's the next layer in the development of Dylan Riola that we will learn that we haven't learned in the first 3 weeks?
He really hasn't had to play in a game that has been a little bit back and forth. Nebraska's been able to snowball every team that they played. I mean, and what I mean by that is outside of Utah, they've largely just taken a lead, maintained that lead, built upon that lead, and then finished off the game. And so what if, against Illinois tonight, you're in the second quarter and it's still 7-3 and Nebraska's kind of in there. So we're going to see a different game flow tonight than what we've seen in the first 3 weeks, I think. And maybe it won't. Maybe Nebraska has the ability to just come in, handle business early, and then the second half will be boring and we can resume those conversations next week. But I think that we're going to see kind of a different game flow, which means he's going to be put in different situations, asked to do different things, his ability to manage the ball, manage the clock, manage the team. All of that is going to be unique relative to what he's had to do against Colorado and UTEP and Northern Iowa. So we're going to, I think, see him in an entirely different game flow, which means we're going to get to view him differently as a player than really what it's been. It's been a very comfortable, very controlled environment. What happens if it's a little bit of chaos tonight? How does he respond? I mean, those are the things that you want to see because ultimately he's going to be in games like that. So it's not a bad thing if that were to happen tonight. It's not a bad thing if Nebraska has to grind this win out. That's good. That's good for their growth as a team. Now, it's better if they can just take advantage of this game and prove that they're completely better than Illinois. But that's not always how sports work. And I think we can learn a lot if Nebraska has to work through some things this evening and Dylan's at the center of it.
Shafe, on the defensive side of this one, what you saw last week with only one half of Mekhi Bear and no Jamari Butler, 4 quarters of Bear, a full game for Jamari Butler as well. Is that the difference to you? Was there any concern about what you saw last week and your anticipation of what you see from the defense this week?
No, I just think it's hard to be that hyped 2 weeks in a row like that. I think that, the defense took the field on Saturday and it just wasn't quite the same energy, same opponent, maybe the same focus. I think having guys like Jamari Butler and Mekhi Bear certainly are going to help. They're great players and they're also emotional leaders for you.
Yeah.
And so I think that, those 2 guys being back will help that defense. The way Illinois plays, I think plays into how Nebraska wants to be too. I mean, they want to take the run away from you. Well, Illinois is a bad running team. So if they can continue to make them a bad running team, then you can put all your focus on the 2 receivers who are pretty good players, and Pat Bryant, and I believe the other one is Zachary Franklin.
Yep.
So those guys that's a pretty good duo. It's probably 3rd or 4th best of what's going to be on their schedule, but Pat Bryant's caught 15 of the 17 passes thrown his way. I don't think Tommy Hill will travel with him, but that's a matchup I want to see. Those are NFL guys. I don't know if Zachary Franklin's an NFL guy the same way that Pat Bryant is, but they have talent over there, and so they're going to be challenged in different ways. And having Butler back is huge. I mean, there are times where he can be the most dominant player on that defensive line, and we're talking about Matt Shotmaker and Ty Robinson here. So he's really good, and having him out there with MJ Sherman and Hutmaker and Robinson when that's your top unit, that's really tough. I mean, and so those guys coming out in the first series, I wouldn't be surprised if Jamari Butler makes a play early in this game.
So we'll get you out on this. The last 5 meetings between these 2 teams, and Illinois has had success, especially in Memorial Stadium. The turnover margin, Nebraska's lost, and it's -12 over the last 5 games. If Nebraska wins the turnover battle tonight, what's the score?
If they win it by +1, I think Nebraska's going to cover, but it's also going to be one of those where it's a close cover, if that makes sense. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. My score prediction for this game is Nebraska 23, Illinois 13. It wouldn't surprise me if Nebraska were to cover, but it just feels like it was kind of a back and forth, hard-hitting affair. Like, that's what I think of Illinois football. So, if Nebraska is able to win the turnover battle and they take the ball away a couple times, maybe they could win 27-13. Maybe they could win 30-13. my biggest thing is I struggle to see how Illinois is going to put up a lot of points. I think Nebraska can kind of tamp them down. I think both teams are going to want to work the clock, shorten the game. And so because of that, I just don't think it's going to be a really high-scoring thing. But if Nebraska is able to kind of turn over Illinois instead of always being the one that has to, be good at quick change, it could really kind of change what that final score looks like. I like where Nebraska's at, but I just don't expect them to just roll Illinois tonight.
Shafe, as always, we appreciate it. Enjoy tonight. Enjoy a little Friday night football where you're not at Phelps Field, but instead you're at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, it'll definitely be unique. But like I said, I think the atmosphere is going to be terrific in that stadium tonight, and I think people are going to be pretty fired up.
Yep. Shafe, thanks. Have a good weekend.
Have a good one, guys.
Mike J. Schaefer. I've stuck with it. I'm 24-14.
Yeah. I'm 27-13.
Oh, man, you took mine. I got to be different then. That's a good one. I will go with your original pick and say 31-13 because I liked that.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a little closer, but I expect Nebraska to do what they got to do.
I think also a bold prediction here, Nebraska will run more than 48 plays.
Okay.
Well, ran 48 against Northern Iowa.
Yeah. And you feel like limiting possessions will still be the name of the game for Illinois in this one, too. I'm going to say that Nebraska wins the turnover battle +2 tonight. I think they get a fumble recovery and an interception, and I think they are perfect with the football offensively.
Quick thing here before we get to Vers. Mike brings up a thing about the sellout streak that we were talking about in the last hour. He says, consider that an egg-based state has sold out a stadium during harvest.
Yeah.
One of the busiest, demanding times of the year. And the place is sold out.
The day I told you about in the last segment, that's very much what was going on. My dad met my father-in-law, and my father-in-law was knee-deep in harvest, so he got a chance to get the whole experience. So, yeah, that one hits home.
I think that's a great point by Mike. I think that is it's just another layer to the testament of the support, the loyalty that you get from the state and the fans. Yeah.
All right. Vers wasn't very loyal. He was on the Northern Iowa sideline for the game on Saturday night. I'm not sure if he's handed in his degree or his Letterman's jacket. We're going to find out. We'll press him when he joins us next on 1620 The Zone. The rumors are true, but he already told you. Yes, that was Matt Verzal at a Northern Iowa pep rally before the game. That was Matt Verzal on the sidelines of the Northern Iowa Panthers. That was Matt Verzal that had a big smile on his face because his young child, Blake Anderson, played really well on Saturday night, and now he's here to explain himself. Good morning.
What's up, boys?
How you doing?
I am good. That went about as good as I could have had it go.
It did. And I mean, that left side of the line, Penning is a FCS All-American for a reason with a brother that plays in the NFL. Blake looked really, really good. What were your thoughts on watching Northern Iowa up close, being on that side of the field, on how they approached that game?
To clear one thing up, I was on the Nebraska sideline, which is now on the west. Good angle, but I think they had the even quarters. On the even quarters, I was like, man, I could just sneak over there and then I could watch the left side because they just kept coming toward me, so I got the full view of the left side of the line. I talked to Blake in the summer, and he said, we're going to be able to run it. He said, we're going to have to get used to the size of Huntmacher and Robinson, and they're big kids, and their game plan wasn't crazy. It's like you put in a nose, we're going to double him, and we're going to move him out, try to move him out, and we're going to try to control the game. Which, when you're in that situation, and you're a smaller school, ball control, good defense, and turnovers, and fortunately for Nebraska, we were able to do kind of what we wanted to do. Their defense was a little undersized. They couldn't really get done everything they wanted to, but not our pig, not our farm. So win the game and move on.
So for people that watched that, and there was some leaky yardage, there was some bad run fits by Nebraska. So going into tonight's game with another operation that they would like to line it up and win in the line of scrimmage, should anybody have any concerns or minor concerns about that defense?
No. Real quick with Northern Iowa, they also had a 230-pound running back. So that may affect the run fit or two. I told people after the game, I said, that's the perfect game for Nebraska to play leading into Illinois. Now, I know people are telling me, oh my God, Illinois can't run it and they can't this and they can't that. Bielema is Bielema. And I know they played Kansas, but sometimes when you watch film, you just know you don't have to show the full gamut of things. And they were able to do that. By the way, the jackwagon down in Texas, I think his name's like Gambino or something.
Oh, yeah. On Twitter?
Just if you're listening, moron, my time that I wanted Lance Leipold was when you wanted Grandpa, and then when you wanted the other one. So we wouldn't be in this situation, you idiot. Like, you're the reason people don't like Nebraska. So keep my name out your mouth. Don't tag me in nothing, because we'd be in a different spot had they hired him instead of Grandpa. But anyway, I digress. Illinois will want to come in and do things similar because they're going to think they can have success doing it. Now, do they have the lines that they've had? Like they had a good line last year or in the couple past years. So I think they're going to probe it and find out and see what they can do. And if they find something they like, get used to seeing it, because they'll run it until Nebraska stops it. So it was Northern Iowa was a good lead in to play in Illinois.
And by the way, love the shirt that you had on last week too. It was good talking with you. And you mentioned something about the defense when we were talking last week, and it was you kind of alluded to the same thing that you just mentioned about Illinois. This would be a good test for Illinois. The one thing I was kind of intrigued on what you saw was the quick passing game that Northern Iowa also implemented too, especially when you do have a team that can shut down the run. Is that something not just Illinois going forward, but other teams kind of look at what you and I did with that quick passing game that could be effective and something that Nebraska can be aware of?
Yeah, for sure. And team, like Coach White is perfectly content. Like, hey, if you want to make a living of throwing this short pass, my guys are trained. The first guy's going to take a shot, but he's going to make the guy cut to where his help's coming from. So that's you want to live on a diet of quick pass, 3-4 yard plays. Cool. Every time you do it, we're just going to walk that coverage up a yard. We're going to walk it up another half yard. So now your 4-yard quick pass is now a 2 yard. If you want to live that way, cool. We're good with that. We don't think you can complete them all day, but we're going to get closer and closer to now where your receiver gets a little uncomfortable. Like, hey, he was playing a little bit off here. Now he's kind of a lot closer than he was. So they'll give you things and then they just kind of take them away because they're so disciplined in what they do. So if that's the way Illinois wants to go, that's going to be a long road for them, I believe.
What if they wanted to go on the defensive side of the ball, which I think they will do because they did it last year with Aaron Henry as their DC in his first year, is they were able to mix coverages where they kind of disguised, are they man, are they zone, tough to get a quarterback to get a look at it. So if you're a young quarterback, what's the best way on offense for Nebraska to get a tell on what Illinois is going to do before the snap of the ball?
I don't know so much you need a tell. Well, okay. If you want to force them into a tell, then get that 1 to 2 yard push, turn that 1 to 2 yard push into a 4 to 5 yard gain. Now you've taken the luxury of flexibility away from them. You can't stop us from getting 4 on first down, so you better throw another one in the box. And now it's a lot harder to disguise what you want to do in coverage with one less cover guy because you've had to commit him to stop the run. So as far as like those kind of things, that would be a big key to me. Can Nebraska get immediate push, get Dowdell or Ramir or Emmett going downhill? You know, you got 3 of them. Mm-hmm. I don't fret putting any one of those gentlemen in the game. So now it's like, okay, we're going to get 3. Let's take it. Or 4. Let's take it. And now you make the defense do what they don't want to do, which they want. I'm sure they probably try to want to confuse Riola, but pretty seasoned kid for his age. So it's going to be hard for them to do that. But if I want to dictate, hey, here's what you can do. Mm-hmm. If you lighten the box, we're going for 4. If you keep it heavy, now we'll see how cute you are in coverage.
Did you notice any major differences without Mazuka in there compared to Latovsky in that game?
There's just when he plays, there's just an edge. It's awesome, but it's just right on the edge of volatility.
Yeah.
It's like 1 or 2 things away from like, oh man, we could have a freaking brawl here. Like this is about to be awesome. But there's the attitude to it. There's a little, a meaningful. I think he does a good job for the most part. When you're playing and you miss or you're not doing great and you start shoving people, you're shoving out of frustration. When Mazuka does it, he's shoving because he's like, I know I'm going to hurt you. Like, I know I'm about to inflict pain on you for 4 quarters. Here's another little shove, just so you know I'm everywhere. Mm-hmm. So there's just a little edge to it that I appreciate.
How do you handle a guy like that on and off the field?
I don't know a lot of the reason why he didn't play. I'm sure it's come out. I don't want to know. But, after a guy is willing to legit square up and throw hands in a game against another opponent, I have a pretty good estimate of what it is. I feel this 100% just with the way kids are now. It's nothing against the kids, just the way the world is today. Nebraska's psychology department cannot be an in-house entity because in former regimes, the communication from the psychologist to the coaching staff was very close, which is so effed up that I can't even begin to discuss it. I think you just need the young man to just go talk. Say, hey, we think you're awesome, or I think I'm awesome. I just got to figure out how to control this. If I can control it, I think I can go get paid. But everybody's got a button, that's going to get pushed and it's going to take them with it. I think that was one great luxury we have with Jack was that even as powerful as Teal was, if we went and talked to Jack, it never crossed our mind that he would go talk to coaches. And it happens in more than one sport up there. But that would be where I would be. And I mean, even on him, he can go do it himself. He can say, hey, I need to go talk to somebody. But if God help him, if he learns how to control that, whew, baby. Because I think he's a vital part of it, just because he brings the edge and the attitude that I've been looking for a while in that. And he may not be the leader, but he's the one they're worried about. Like, where is he right now? We have to find him. Head on a swivel, boys. Head on a swivel.
And Gary brought this up earlier in the week. I thought it was a pretty good point that I didn't think of, because when I think of handling any type of player disciplinary thing, we know there's going to be internal stuff that we're not going to be privy to, but I always think of it as setting the message to the team, which I think is part of this. But also, Gary brought up the point of, sometimes you're going to try to save that player from himself, because that guy has a pro future as well. So you're walking that fine line in between making sure they know that you want them to be there, but also not being able to, I guess the word I would look at is disqualify your overall team morality of what you want them to be. So basically, you're not going to move the goalposts on certain guys because they can help you to win. But more than anything, this also, you can have a reputation if this is your third school and you're not always seeing eye to eye with coaches and stuff like that. That can obviously track as part of your reputation as a player going into the NFL as well.
So I don't think that they worry a whole bunch about the NFL side of it. I think they worry more of, hey, we want you to come through this because we know this works and we know this is how it's going to go. And then, much as me and here, then we can sign off on you. And we can, of clear conscience, say this kid can do X, Y, and Z. Almost like you're giving your recommendation of him. I don't think that it factors in a whole bunch right now that you could play in the NFL to this staff. But they've proven if you want to come in and act crazy, they will move on. Cooper figured that out. It isn't nobody is immune. It can be any and everybody. And they will, if you don't want to do this way, then we'll just keep her moving. So I think it's more of that, almost like me as an employer. Like, I've got kids that I'll pass on to jobs, and I won't pass them on until I feel like they are comfortable. And they may not like that, but in the end, when they come back in 2-3 years, like, man, my boss loves me. I'm like, yeah, you're a killer. Like, you go work. Now, you don't let your boss take advantage of you and work you when you don't need to work, but you do what's right. So that's just kind of how I view them.
Yep. We'll see how soon or when he gets into the game tonight with Lutovsky starting. Verse, as always, appreciate it. Thank you.
That was a good attempt to rat me out. I was a man of the people that day.
It's okay. I mean, you were up front. You had transparency. You were honest. You told us what you were going to do.
It was. I'll tell you what. That was my first game in 10 years.
In person?
And I got yeah.
Wow.
I got to hang out with Jay Foreman the whole game, so that was always entertaining. I did get it was a kick out of it. Rashawn was over there too, and they're like, "Which one's your boy?" And I was like, 65. And so they're playing, and BJ was taking pictures, and Foreman comes up to me, goes, "That kid's pretty GD and good." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I know." And Rashawn goes up. He's like, "What we got to do to make some stuff happen?" He's like, "I think he would look good in red and white." And I was like, no. Yeah. I think that bridge is burnt. I was like, he's pretty happy in Northern Iowa. So
yeah, well, he looks good, man. They that left side of the line is pretty good for Northern Iowa. Verz, thanks as always. Have a good weekend.
See you, boys.
It's Matt Verzal. Call him Twitter on Verz51. Blake Anderson is a Scott product, all-stater. Looked pretty good on the left side.
Big dude. He stood out. He is a big dude.
Yeah, and speaking out of turn, I mean, Verz promoted him for the guys in Lincoln. There was something that they did not like about him, that they did not pursue, offering a scholarship. But he tried, and as he said, I think he's in a good place for his development. Because if you think you can play in the league will find you. whether you be in Lincoln, Nebraska, or Cedar Falls, Iowa. All right, quick break. Come back. A lot of people have shared their first memories of Memorial Stadium, with tonight maybe being somebody's first memory, and it just coincides with the 400th sellout. We'll do that as we put a wrap on the program. Some final thoughts on Nebraska, Illinois tonight on 1620 The Zone. All right, USC is in Lincoln for a pregame show from 2 to 6, and then Big Red Overreaction is in Lincoln as well. Here is Tim to kick off our final segment of the week. Good morning, Tim.
Hey, Gary, remember the 94 game with Colorado, and it was 11 a.m. kick, and they put Frisco on the goalpost, and I was wearing coveralls all day, and I got soaked in it.
Was that your first experience at Memorial Stadium?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
No,
All right.
I just remember throwing away my coveralls because I had Crisco all over it.
Did you end up with any piece of the goalpost?
I went off it. I touched the crossbar, and we couldn't hold on to it. And eventually people started climbing up on top of me and kept slipping off and stuff. But that's the one I remember because it was camouflage. You know, that stuff's white, just like the goalpost. So you really couldn't tell until you got it all over you.
Hey, but regardless if you had to throw away the coveralls or not, that was an incredible atmosphere that day. I mean,
absolutely, we kicked their butts.
Yes, Nebraska did. That was an ass kicking that day against a really good Colorado team. Tim, thanks for the phone call. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Crisco, I think it was Eddie Harris.
Ardell?
Yeah.
Hey, that was the dominating game on ABC.
Mm-hmm.
That's a game that I heard people say like 10 to 12 blocks from Memorial Stadium. You could hear the roar of the crowd, like when Eric Alford scored on the pass from Behringer early in the third quarter. Like you could hear, and it was the sound was ahead of the TV on ABC that you heard the sound, and then you saw on TV that number 88 was running the end zone and did one of those. It was on the front page of the Journal-Star the next morning.
Back when the 11 a.m. game was the game.
Yeah. Let me run through some memories here. This is from Cindy talking about how one remembers things. I'm now 71. Attended the first sellout versus Missouri, yes, for 50 cents.
Wow.
I remember Nebraska lost 16-7, but still recall many of the players. Denny Claridge, Bobby Hahn, Bob Brown. For some reason, I still recall Missouri's quarterback, Gary Lane, who went on to be a longtime fullback, a longtime football official. And the running back was, you would know this, Nick, because this is a little connection to the Bears, Johnny Rowland.
Oh, yeah.
Cindy says she was hooked after that game. John says, now this is remembering this going back. John says I was born in 62, so I don't remember the first sellout. Why? I was 8 and 70, my first game, and sadly, I don't even remember the team we played, but I remember sitting with my grandma, the sea of red and balloons that were flying. From 71 to 84, I never missed a home game, and vivid memories of being at a game of the century because my grandfather worked as a photographer at the Omaha World Herald. My work would take me away for about 10 years. When I returned for the Southern Miss game, when I heard the band and then the balloons were flying, I was 30-plus years old and remember the little boy sitting by me asking his father, why is he crying? Well, it's simple. There is no place like Nebraska. Thanks for sharing that.
That's cool.
Let's see here. Hockey Dad Rich says October 23rd, 1982, first game, Nebraska-Mizzou. Went with my grandpa, who was from the Missouri class of 1932. I was 10. I think it was the only sporting event he ever went to in my life. Wow. Going into the stadium for the first time was amazing.
Yep.
Jake says I was in 8th grade, and my science teacher, assistant football coach, Roger Eitzman, had season tickets and took me to the Nebraska-Iowa State game in either 02 or 03. He was a great man and my favorite teacher ever. Always let me read his World Herald sports section he had on his desk. Sean said went to the 63-0 drubbing of Oregon in 85. That was his first game. Most memorable game was with his mom, of all people. See, I love that you know who you went with.
Yeah.
88 Oklahoma State game, Ken Clark versus Barry Sanders.
Yeah, that's a good one.
John also writes in. He said, brought my wife's nephew last week, an Iowa State grad and fan. His first words once we were in our seats seeing the full house was, how did you guys ever lose a game? Then the tunnel walk and run up to the game. He turned to me and said, now I get it.
Yeah. And that was actually, speaking of last week too, is when we finally got to our seats was during the Husker Power chant and then seeing it all play out. And they came out obviously right underneath where we were. For the people that their first time at that stadium that I was with, they didn't really verbalize it. They were just kind of locked in and watching it. Like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, sort of stopping in their tracks. It was that's what's kind of cool now is when you've seen it yourself, looking at other people's reactions, and you can tell who is either a first timer or is not used to it. It's that evident. It's cool.
All right, let's take a couple calls here before we close up shop and head to the crossover. Here is Craig. Craig, good morning.
Good morning. Love the show.
Thank you.
I'm older than you guys, so I think I was in 7th grade, so we're talking like 1979. Went to a Kansas State game. Just to tell you, things have not changed. I was very excited. I was very low, I think, like the front row behind the players, so I was standing up a lot trying to see. Old guy behind me kept telling me to sit down. And it's like, this is my first game, dude. It's like my first memory of Nebraska football is everybody jumping around in the living room in 1970. We just won the national championship. I don't even remember the game, but I remember everybody was excited because we won the national championship. So I was dying to go see a game. I finally got to go see one. This guy's telling me to sit down. And I was being polite and sitting down. By the end of the game, I just told him to shut up. It's like, we're playing Kansas State. We're kicking their butt so bad. I'm still standing. I don't care, sir. And they still do it today. I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's one thing that hasn't changed. Craig, thanks for the phone call. Here is Scott. Good morning, Scott.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I had been to games before, but the first time I really, really remember, and it is a classic game. My mom and dad had 2 season tickets, so my dad sent my brother and my mother into the game, and my dad stood outside the stadium with 2 fingers up in the air in 1978, and a gentleman went, I believe kickoff was like imminent, like we were going to miss the kickoff. But this gentleman went running by my dad and said, "Let's go." And we ran into the stadium with this guy, and my dad paid for the tickets when we got to the seat. And the gentleman was a doctor and had surgery that morning and was running late. And that is my memory of the Nebraska-Oklahoma 1978 game.
Wow. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
That is awesome. Scott, have a great Football Friday.
Like I said, I could listen to this all day.
I don't know
stories.
if Scott and the doctor friend that they just became friends with, broke through the gate.
Yeah.
We'll finish on this because this is a good way to and for people that are just tuning in, we talked about the thing that about that stadium is it creates memories and the first time you went. Here's one from John. It's not my first memory in Memorial Stadium, but it's my favorite one. It was the first time I took my daughter to a game when she was 10 years old. It's something I will never forget.
Yep.
That's the power of the old grandma on 10th and Vine that once again tonight we'll have over 80,000 people in the stadium to watch Nebraska play football. And for people that have been there for the first 3 weeks, it's different. The vibe in the stadium is different than the last couple of years. And it kind of, since Rule has been the head coach, we haven't had these debates of, gosh, look at all those pockets of seats that are empty.
Yeah.
This year, not even close. Place has been packed for 3 games. And it'll be packed on a Friday night where we wrang our hands about, 6 months ago? Said, this is a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Place will be packed. Yeah. Students are already tailgating in Lincoln, by the way.
Not a cloud in the sky.
Yeah, weather's going to be great. It's a Big Ten opponent. Nebraska's doing well. Should be a lot of fun tonight. I said 24-14. You guys should have stuck with the same score.
Stick with the same score? I'll go with you. 27-13. I like that. Yeah.
That's what I had. I said 27-13.
That's what I'm saying. He's saying,
You influence Jimmy. Jimmy's like, I can't be like Nick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, who cares? Hey, if you're right, you're right. Then we're both right. That's cool.
All right. Enjoy a football Friday, a real football Friday. Now, if you're out at a high school game, just make sure you have good Wi-Fi and your phone is charged to watch Nebraska and Illinois all day leading up to kickoff. And then afterwards, don't forget Big Red Overreaction. Nebraska, Illinois, we'll be back on Monday to recap it all before Nebraska goes on the road for the first time. Will Nebraska be 4-0 and will they move up in the rankings? If they win tonight, you'll like the pregame shows tomorrow. For Nick, for Jimmy, I'm Gary. Crossover with the Connor Happer shows coming up next.